Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome to the April 18, 2006 Newmarket Planning Board meeting. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'll open this to public comments for anything that's not on the agenda tonight. Anybody have any comments for anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Review and approval of the March 21st, 2006 meeting minutes. I have a motion to accept those.
I have one amendment.
And I'll note that Erica's not here tonight. So we are on TV, so let's all speak clearly into the microphone. And if you can help me just take notes in case she's not.
On page 5, the first motion made by myself, the last sentence is comfortable with it should be cistern, not citron, idea as a means for firefighting. And that was all I saw.
That's a global that she needs to do. That happens more than one time. It happens on 2 places on page 3, page 4, page 5, and that's it. Actually, that's my only comment on this.
Now, on page 2, 3, cistern was spelled wrong in 2 places. The first line, use of cistern, and then in the third line, they then called it system, which should have been cistern again. Second word on the third line, we understood that the cistern would need to be signed. Well, I guess you could call it system of a cistern, I guess.
Okay, just to be clear, that on page 3, it occurs in the first line, it says George Willen asked that the use of the citron should be cistern. The third line of that paragraph changed system to cistern. And the fourth paragraph down, starting with Debbie Berger, the third to the last line, in which the cistern fire should be cistern fire. On page 4, first paragraph, third line down, last word, cistern should be changed to cistern. And on page 5, as Bob just noted, in the second to last line of the motion, citron should be cistern.
On page 4, the fourth paragraph down, said a deal was criteria. That the criteria was for the sign of the system. In other words, how many gallons, how much water would be needed, and whatever. Newmarket didn't have that criteria.
Leo, could you just repeat that for me? Read the sentence. Leo Fillon asked, what do you want changed?
But the criteria was for the system. Most towns had plans in place based on how many gallons per home.
You want deal changed to criteria?
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other changes?
I move we accept the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Discussion? The only other question I have is, never mind. No, actually I do. On page 9, sorry about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sixth line down, micro turbine needs an E at the end of it. Okay. Any others? All right. Vote to accept the March 21st, 2006 meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item on the agenda is a discussion of planning board approvals. Reference property at Rivermore Landing, Unit B, tax map U2, lot 368, M2 zone. Dan?
Mr. Chairman, could I pass these out?
Yes.
I'll pass, I don't have copies for everybody, so Janice, you could share with Leo and Jennifer. I might be able to share with Robert and Debbie. Gentlemen, you want to share that?
I never read a book this big.
My objective here this evening is to provide you with information so that you can make a determination on recall or review of a minor site plan review that was approved in November of '02. What you have in hand is a 100-page report or so that finally led to a administrative search warrant to determine if in fact there was a compliance with the zoning ordinance, which later led to an understanding that there was either a violation with the planning board or itself with the zoning board. The applicant appeared before the board in November of '02 for a minor site plan review where the Curves applicant for the Women's Workout Center was taking over a space that was at that time occupied by Great North Property Management. The applicant appeared before the board with a floor plan indicating that there was 1,200 square feet of space being used by Curves, and it was demonstrated in that presentation. And if you turn to page 31, you can see that the applicant for that site plan indicated 4 areas to be used in that space. The 4 areas come up to about 1,200 square feet of space that the applicant indicated at that time would be used. If you read through the reception area, 150, the dressing area, 125, the training center itself is 800 square feet, and the office area is 125 square feet. Prior to the applicant appearing before this board, there was a lease agreement signed by Great North Property Management and Curves, which allowed Great North Property Management to share that office space with her. That was not presented to the board at that time. So unknowingly to the board, what they approved was 1 business, and in fact we have 2 businesses in the same location. Whether or not that is, whether or not you want us, the board wants to see that come back before the board, I was asked to follow through with enforcement on it, and as a result of the investigation, that's the information that I have.
And Great North is still operating?
Great North claims to be operating from a office space within the Curves leased area. During testimony at the ZBA meeting, the space was defined as 250 square feet, 400 square feet, and 125 square feet. So 3, but from the attorney as well as the owner. So I don't think we really know what office is operating down there or what the activity is. It's been described as being a satellite office to handle contracts or agreements with other rental spaces that or leased areas that might be controlled by Great North Property Management.
And if, I'm trying to think out the strategy here, Dan. So what we'd ask them to do is come back to revise their site plan, or?
I guess the presentation would probably be to incorporate the use of Curves as well as Great North Property Management in the presentation to the planning board for their approval of a minor site plan review.
Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
My impression in all these years is that site plan or subdivision regulations went with the land. In other words, the people who own the property are the ones who get the site plan. And basically, what it was permitted in here, reception area, dressing room, training center, and office area, is what goes with the property. We didn't really approve curves in there. We approved a mixture of uses in this B building there on lot 368. And that goes with the property. If Great Northern Property Man sold the place, it would still be those restrictions on it. If curves moved out, those restrictions would still be on the property. If Great Northern Property Management and whatever wants to change their lease arrangement over the subsequent years, as long as they keep this basic use, that's all that would be required. In other words, the permitted uses for property goes with the property, and I don't feel that we have given curves a license or anything to do anything. I think all we did, we were asked to approve, I wasn't on a board yet, but the board was asked to approve a bunch of uses on it, which as shown here, reception area, whatever, approximately, and the board did approve that. And I think if, it's almost like any other business in town, if you approve a restaurant area for a restaurant, every time they sell or change restaurants, they don't come back. If it's a retail space you've approved in a building, any retail space is allowed to go in there, regardless of who owns it or whatever. What we really, there seems to be some confusion about uses and permitted uses. And I've always been the feeling, and the general feeling is that when you come to the board, you are asked for permitted uses. In our table of permitted uses, like state's office is one use. So once you give an applicant a set of uses, that stays with the property, not with the lessor, lessee, or whatever. And I think that this here is just a case of that. If Great Northern Property Management at the end of this year decided they wanted to make a different lease arrangement with curves, for instance, oh, we don't need all the room, we only need half, it wouldn't have to come back to the planning board, because it's not, as long as they do not change the permitted uses that was approved by the planning board in 2002.
Well, I think I understand where you're going with that, but I don't know if I totally agree with it.
No?
Because, listen, hear me out. Because the use in there also affects ancillary or additional, for instance, if the number of people, well, it's really based on the square footage, but the amount of parking that's required, the signage that's allowed. I mean, I think this all started out because of a sign that was up, assuming that they weren't operating anymore, that Great North Property wasn't operating there any longer.
Correct.
So there's ancillary items that go along with the site plan review and the ordinances that are attached to that. So your thing is saying is that, well, if Great North wants to lease that to another entity besides Curves, and that, even though they have the same amount of space, they may have more parking needed or another sign out there, they wouldn't have to come before us to approve that. And I'm not sure that would be the case. Or they would at least have to go before the zoning board if they want to do something different than what's in the ordinance.
I agree with that, but are you saying, though, if we've approved an office area, if they have lawyers in there and they want to put a real estate office in there or something, that's a change in use that comes before the board?
If it would affect the ancillary uses, I say it would have to. In other words, if there are more people going in and more parking, I think we'd have to review that. If it was just within the bounds of that wall, maybe not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No, I agree if we change the walls, but basically, it's never been that way. I mean, we've had restaurants downtown that have changed 3-4 times. We've had even next to Wheelie's there, we had some ladies'
Cosmetic.
cosmetics, and then it went to a real estate building after. They never went to the planning board between these uses, and no one has ever gone that way. It's always been a change in use is a change in a permitted use. No.
I think the difference that I'm seeing here, Leo, is this is a change in use based on the idea that it went from being one women's gym to a women's gym and a real estate office. So it's changed its use in the two uses. Am I wrong on that idea? I mean, it's gone from being one office to two, which.
And you think that require, say if we gave building an area that had 2 lawyers in it, and they went to 3 and 4 lawyers in it, you would have to come back?
No, I think that's a different area. This isn't, we added another weight machine. This is, we added a whole nother office.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference that I'm seeing.
Jen, go ahead.
I just have a question for Dan, or maybe it's a question for you, George. But did GNPM Realty Trust come before the planning board and get approval before they were in there? And then, so they've already had approval to be in there, and then they asked to lease the space? Is that the process? Has GNPM ever been given permission by the planning board to be where they are?
Yes, I believe that was in 1996.
1996. And then in 2002 is when this happened, that they said they were going to lease their 1,200 square feet. Is that all they have is 1,200 square feet?
In actuality, according to the Condominium Act, the space had to be measured by a registered engineer to provide the detailed information, and actually it measures out to 1,121 square feet. So the use of the 1,200 square feet was a fairly accurate number. If you'll see there, that space about adds up to 1,200 square feet that Curves presented.
So according to this, they were really wanting to lease out all of their space and not be there.
Correct,
If they're saying, because this is 1,200 square feet.
correct.
Okay.
One of the issues
No.
I see here, I think, is that it seems to be a misrepresentation to the board back then.
Well,
But the
Hang on, Dan had a, before you
Okay,
voted, Dan had an issue.
The requirements for the minor site plan review are inclusive of change of use. If you want to go from a restaurant to a restaurant, there's no need for that applicant to come before this board because there has been no change. But when you're going from a fitness center, or excuse me, when you're going from an office that deals in real estate to a fitness center, and you read the criteria for the minor site plan review, and the changes that occurred automatically brings that applicant to the planning board for approval. And certainly, whatever criteria the board might apply to the resolve of that issue.
Yeah.
in 1984, I guess, when this was, no, the lease agreement that was given to the board at the time, which, I don't know where, it's in here, says that Great Northern Property Management would have control over this area for their use. Now, where are they?
That was, may I comment?
Yeah, and I don't think it was in 1984.
It was in 2002.
Okay.
But the lease was signed to an agreement to share the space prior to the Curves applicant coming before the board. And that was the information that should have been presented to the board at that time, that the space was actually being shared, which eventually led to the signage problem that you mentioned, and one led to the other. And then I was requested to do the inspection for the enforcement, and as a result of that inspection, that's pretty much what I have to tell you.
And the result of the inspection, you did the enforcement inspection, why? Why did you do the enforcement inspection?
As a result of a complaint that was received because of the sign that was on the building, and that there was no approvals for the business to be within the same space with Curves. And then realizing what those facts were, that it was never an approved second business within that business approved for curves. The planner asked for a investigation for compliance, an inspection for compliance.
I guess I've got the contract here, section 34, additional provisions. This is between Curves and Blaisdell, which is, and the lesser 9/14/02, which was the month before the approval from the planning board. In section 34, additional provisions, it is understood that the lessor will retain control of the conference room in Unit B and will have access to it at will. That was given to the board at the time. The fact that they didn't separately bring it up and no one questioned it, it was part of the lease agreement that was signed between Curves and Great Northern Management.
At that time, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that that lease agreement was actually signed 2 months prior to the presentation of the planning board. So at that time, the presentation was 1,200 square feet to be used by Curves, not to be inclusive of Great North Property Management. The agreement between the Curves and the owner is a separate agreement that, unless was brought forward to the board as part of their application, the board had no knowledge that the second business was even there to determine its findings for approval.
Was the lease part of the application?
It was not.
And I think that's the answer, in my mind. We can't, I understand what you're saying, Leo, but
Yeah.
unless that's presented to the board, that's not part of our, that's not facts that board could have made a decision on.
Well, I don't know, I wasn't there, so I don't know
Well,
what that
I'm
lease
taking
agreement-
Dan at his word that if it's not, even if it was part of the application, it'd be sort of stretching, but if it was part of the application, then I could say, well, then that board should have read it and understood that possibly.
And I agree with you.
Well, yeah, but even at that point, I think the applicant would, even doing that, to that stretch, I would say it behooves the applicant to point it out to the board too. And if they didn't, I think they were incorrect, and
And I believe that is part of the presentation, that all activities will be presented to the planning board for their decision.
of course, maybe I'm stretching this, but in light of that, then it would have been self-evident why the sign was kept out front. And we wouldn't be down this road to where we are, I think,
Mhm.
what the town is. In my opinion, to rectify it, I think they should go in for a minor site plan revision and just get the whole matter re-sorted out. That's my opinion, but I'm willing to listen to other people. Discussion, thoughts? Anybody else?
I don't agree, but that's, again, I think this use and permitted use interchangeability, I think we've got to get resolved. When the board grants a permitted use for a site, I guess we've got to define whether we're actually approving a general permitted use or actually we're approving the use that is specified just before us. On all office space, all areas, I guess, almost whenever a business changes in a commercial building, I guess, we're almost getting to the point where, well, parking may change, therefore you've got to come back to the planning board. I think that is not what the intent of site plan regulations was.
Jen?
Here's my opinion. According to this, there's nothing in this that says that their intention was to use some of this 1,200 square feet for anything else than curves. And I think the difference, Leo, is that we're now saying that there are two businesses in this 1,200 square feet. It's not that it's actually a change of use, but that they're actually adding another business into this 1,200 square feet where the last time they represented themselves to the planning board, it was one business in this 1,200 square feet. So I would agree that I think they need to come back for a minor site review.
Well said. Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm trying to harken back probably more than that, probably now 6 months ago, there was, you guys can help me out, there was someone in town who came back because he wanted to change to an office space, something, we had a whole issue about parking, I can't remember his name.
Oh, it was the Lamprey River Tavern
Yeah.
upstairs
Thank you.
there.
And that's, one could say that was the same use, but he came back for a site plan review because of the parking issue. I think it's the same thing here, as Jen said, now there's two uses. If it was known then, you would have known there was two signs outside, the whole enforcement issue would have gone away. I think it's important, if curves changed to something else and it was a matter of the same kind of use and they just changed the sign, there's only one sign out there, but the way they planned this out to have two entities would have led to a different conclusion of what signage and parking there would be, so. Any other discussion? If we put a motion here to move this, what would you do? Go back to them and ask them to come in for a site plan review? Minus that,
Yes, sir, I would.
do I have a motion?
So moved.
Would you put a restriction on that, Vince? In other words, a time element, when they should come back?
I would address the letter this week and probably request at the board's pleasure when they would like to see the applicant back before the board.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
At the next meeting?
I could do that if you'd like, sir.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not so sure we could meet the notification process. I think
Yeah.
that might be a problem.
Well,
So it should definitely be the next meeting then, the following meeting.
okay.
May, June.
The next meeting that conforms with proper notification, how's that?
Yes.
Okay, Jen made a motion to ask for a minor site plan revision for the Curves Great North property. That's filed before us within the next notification period. It was seconded by Chet. Any further discussion? I made an error here for a minute. Before I close this, I'll open this up to public comments. Does anybody have any public comments, comments from the public on this issue?
I don't
Ian?
think it's a public hearing.
Huh?
We're not in a public hearing or anything.
I can still ask for public comments.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to close that then. Back to the motion. No other further discussion on the board? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Well, now your book's back.
Elected bids.
Oh, you're going to collect these? You're not going to let me read them? I thought I had something to read tonight when I went home.
Stay up late.
Do I have
We
another?
shared.
You shared one? Thank you for your time.
Next item on the agenda is Judy Ryan, discussion of a historical district. Again, this is a consultation.
Thank you very much. This is more of an information and consultation
Good.
presentation. Following
Judy,
the-
state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Judith Ryan. I'm the chair of the Newmarket Advisory Heritage Commission. Following the master plan that was developed in 2001, there was a resolution passed by the town council actually, it is, I might have to correct myself immediately here. Anyway, there is a resolution by the town council to establish an advisory heritage commission. And that commission was to review the heritage aspects of the town. We have in this town a historic district that is on the National Register. That runs, I have a map of that, that was filed with the Federal Register, and that was in the early 1980s. In our resolution as an advisory heritage commission, we were charged to develop surveys, we were charged to develop regulations and rules and regulations regarding the renovations, restoration, preservation of our historic districts and the buildings therein. We are prepared now, after a number of years of work with the town planner, to actually initiate an ordinance that would in fact give us the criteria by which we would preserve the downtown area. This area runs from the intersection of Gary Ave and Exeter Street and all the way to the bridge, the upper bridge by the library, from the river and back along Spring Street, Nichols Ave, Granite Street. These buildings are, for the most part, residential, except for the Main Street area, which is obviously our commercial area. Our purpose in this proposal that we will be putting forward to the town council is to preserve that area. It is to retain that multi-decade aspect of the town. There are buildings in the area that are very old, 1800s, 1900s, 20th century, so that we want to be able to maintain that kind of feel and environment within that district. Some examples I would like to give you would be that this is an exterior renovations only, has nothing to do with the interior of a home or a business or a restaurant, etc. It is only on the exterior, and it's to maintain the character that exists today. So that if someone wanted to come in and completely modernize to to 2006 an existing building from 1700, those would be something we would be wanting to look at and make recommendations on how that could be handled. We would like to see people use like or same materials that are existing on buildings as they are today. If they are going to completely restore, we would like to see some materials such as clapboards as opposed to asphalt or asbestos on the exterior of the building. If they're going to be putting an addition in the back, that it should be in sync with the rest of the building. These are the kinds of criteria that we would like to put forward and as we go forward with this ordinance. The members of this commission are appointed by the town council. They have the same rules and regulations and operating procedures as you do, of having public hearings, of consulting with the owners, with the developers, with the town, other town committees, with the code enforcement officer, the town planner, to see that the criteria is met, and that we would rather see things restored and repaired rather than totally demolished and replaced. I have piles of information from the New Hampshire Historic, New Hampshire Preservation Alliance. We have a number of things from the federal government regarding historic preservation, but it is in light that we want to work together with the town, the town council, the town committees, and also owners of properties within the historic district to maintain that atmosphere, that environment that in the long term will keep the town's character and put forth a, really keep the heritage going and be working with people to see that that happens. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I guess the first question I have for the other board members, the package was here on the table tonight. Was it in the mail? I don't think it was in the mailboxes, was it?
I got mine in the mail.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody had an opportunity to look at it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any questions for Judy, discussion? Go ahead, Janice.
Judy, I would just, as an individual, if I lived in this area, it's going to be historic overlay. I would think, not everyone watches Channel 13 or has cable.
Right.
I would just think it'd be a nice gesture to notify these people, if possible, that this ordinance is going to be taking place to get, not just the business owners' input,
Right.
but the people who it's directly going to affect. Because I saw one thing in here about the steps. You like to maintain the steps like original,
Right.
but according to building code, you wouldn't be able to keep the steps because the steps are too high. And I know we're going through our little
Right.
committee's going through something, so there's some issues there that won't be able to be.
That's
Yep.
correct, and we'd have to meet, whatever happens within a renovation or restoration has to meet the current building codes. That's why we need to work with a code enforcement officer. When the process would be when someone came in for a building permit and they lived in this district, and I think your suggestion is excellent, and I think we would take that and try to notify people in the district. But when they came in for a building permit, then we would be working together to see that there was communication and that things would come together and that we would meet all codes. I think the long-term thing, and this is not immediate, but in doing this, there is the potential for some financial assistance and federal tax credits for doing this kind of work.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Good.
Judy?
Oh, okay,
One
Chet.
question. One quick question.
Go ahead. No.
In regards to the boundaries that you have marked out on this map, let's say in back of the Legion, why weren't those buildings considered as a part of this district? Along the waterfront?
Well, this was done in 1984, and I do not know exactly how that these boundaries were drawn, because I was not involved in it at that point in time. There were two historic preservation consultants who actually did this work, so I cannot answer you, Chet, onto why that whole back end of it looks like Creighton Street, Colonial, is it Colonial Drive up there? Yeah. I do not know the answer to that for you, but this is what is on the register now, and this is what is recognized by the National Register.
Leo, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess I was on the board when this came back in the 90s, and I guess the concern at the time was something like vinyl siding and everything whether that would be allowed, and there'd be roofing, what type of roofing would be allowed and everything. And I guess that was a big concern, and even the colors that would be allowed in certain areas, whether they would be compatible with the whatever. And I guess that's why at the time they went to an advisory where they would advise the planning board, the other boards that would be. I guess the mills is the same way. I mean, there's a lot of this is tearing down old buildings. I mean, if you see what was done at Bryant Rock over there, I mean, several old buildings were taken down in order to make that project go, and I guess there'd be some conflict here between tearing down old buildings and whether they would be allowed or what the process is. If you look at what's happening in Portsmouth, I mean, and in Durham, that there's gets to be some quite severe battles between the Historic Commission and the development people that wanted to do things downtown. I guess that was a concern back then in the 90s when this first came up.
Do you have any comment to that, Judy?
Well, I think the purpose here is that we have a fairly small area. When we're talking about some of the larger cities and towns in the area, even Exeter or Portsmouth obviously being much larger, they're dealing with a bigger opportunity. I think what we have here is a focused opportunity to work, and it's very, very, actually, there's not a lot of space in here for development. There's a lot of space for interior work, But for as far as new buildings, I don't see a number. And the point is that we're prepared here to work together on setting that criteria. And if it is a building that is a safety issue, obviously it's got to be addressed in either a renovation, reconstruction, or demolition. In that case, if it was demolition, it becomes what's replaced.
Well, let me ask you this.
You know.
Was the advisory commission, I wasn't involved at the time, was the advisory commission involved with the revitalization of Bryant Park?
Yes, we were.
And so,
They came before us, but we were advisory at this point.
okay, but Leo just mentioned
Yeah.
that entailed demolition of
Yeah.
several buildings or structures, I
Right.
presume.
As
How did that,
well, we see today the results. I mean, we made some specific recommendations more on the outside of the building, such as railings and what the windows would look like. We made recommendations about some of the landscaping, using granite rock for the landscaping walls, rather than Versalock. Those were the kinds of things that we worked with them. We also met with the Chinburg builders on the Selectwood building. I'm trying to think of some of the other places we are. But those are two examples of the same company.
I guess what I was trying to get a feel for out of that was that there was a cooperation
Yes.
that met all I don't want to say all, but most of the objectives
Right.
of both parties.
Right.
In reading the material myself, the thing that struck me is that we're putting another layer of review, though, on an applicant, on a development or, well, maybe not. I mean, obviously, if someone was just renovating the outside of their house, it would not have to come before this board.
Right. It would be just within the renovation of the exterior. And a building permit to be drawn,
Well, if a new structure, if somebody proposed a new
New
structure
structure,
in
then-
town, they would
then-
have to
then
go
there's-
before this board and
right.
our
Exactly.
commission as you're proposing it.
If it's in this district.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, the one building in my time on the board that did come up in this district, I know I made the motion and requested that they speak to the advisory
Right.
committee, so I'm not sure we're really adding a layer, we're just adding a requirement of a layer. So,
Well, it's more of what struck me as more of a formal layer, because
Right.
the historic commission then would have their own approval cycle.
Right.
And I guess I'd want to make sure that in a situation like that, and there should be few and far between in this small area, that somehow or other it gets done concurrently or in such a way that it doesn't extend out the application process on either side.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
just remember one thing, they also have the authority to request a bunch of studies to be done that would be paid for by the proponent, developer, or whatever. And so that could extend the permitting process by quite a bit of time. In fact, it even calls about it possibly would have a town budget to work from, which can't be done until the next budgetary cycle, as we've already been through the town meeting, so it would be, nothing could be done until the following year.
Leo, you got to talk into your mic. Public can't hear. You have to
Oh.
talk into your mic.
I thought this didn't mean anything out there, this was only for the TV.
No.
Oh?
And regardless, you're supposed to be heard for
Yeah.
both parties. They're also the public.
Right.
Jen, you had your hand raised, I believe.
I did.
Or your finger raised, I'm not sure which.
I have a couple questions, but we actually haven't discussed this yet on the town council level. So I'm going to save most of my questions for then. But just because you brought it up and then Leo just brought it up, there would be an extra process. Let's say there's a business owner in town that wants to redo their roof. They would have to go through the code enforcer to pull the permit. Then they'd also have to go through the historic District Committee, and then if the Historic District Committee felt like they were using a material that was not within the error or the time period or whatever, then and that the committee wanted to do some research to prove that, then that money for the research would fall upon the applicant. So I don't think it would be a budget item, like Leo was saying. If somebody, let's say I wanted to put a new roof on my building, I lived in this area, I wanted to put shingles on it, and I was told I couldn't by the advisor, or by the commission, and they needed to prove to me what was the original roof on that building, then I would have to bear any of those costs associated with that research, according to this. It's not, it wouldn't come from a town budget.
There's another section in there that does call for, if they want to do studies and everything, they would be given a budget to work from.
Yeah, Leo's correct.
On top of that, so.
On top of that,
There,
yes.
well, yeah, I don't know the exact, Leo's correct that there was wording in here concerning the potential to have a budget to do certain items.
If we wanted to initiate a survey to, as Mr. Jablonski said, increase this district, for instance, to include Creighton Street and that area down by the water, that would be something
I see what you
different
mean.
than what you were referring
Okay.
to, Jen.
I guess the other, now that Jen was talking, something hit me that if, I guess one of the things I'd be concerned about is that just that matter, if a business or a resident wanted to, needed to fix their roof, change their roof, that, I guess what I was thinking of is that, is there a way of to have the commission also be proactive, to have I want to call it selection of materials, or have done some of that background research, or things that are applicable, that, with new type of materials out there in terms of vinyl siding or the different kind of architectural shingles that now out there, that would be that are applicable and within the tenant. So if someone wanted to do that, they could go to you and have an idea beforehand and try to work without having to do that research themselves.
I think that that's part of our charge from the initial resolution, which is to assist the planning board, to advise other agencies to survey and inventory the cultural and historic resources. That would be our job. I mean, we have a historic society. We have people who we can go to. Sylvia and Forbes Getchell obviously are very knowledgeable. We have a great deal of material on the Stone School. That would be our responsibility to a certain extent. I mean, we're not going to go to Home Depot and price out with the cost of one kind of siding to another, but if we have those things on hand, and I'm sure that in the spirit of working together with the town planner and code enforcement officer, that we would have that information and resources available.
Okay, Jen. I knew you were thinking, so I was waiting.
I'll be sitting here all night now. It appears that the Heritage Advisory Commission would become the Historic District Commission. Is that true, or?
This is a question for Clay. He is the person who drafted this. There is a Heritage Advisory Commission and a Historic District Commission, and I believe you are correct, but I would need to clarify that with Clay, because he was the one who has actually prepared these documents.
Okay, because the workshop that we went to in regards to historic districts and heritage advisory commissions, it seemed to be the suggestion that you would continue to have two separate entities, and the Heritage Advisory Commission would continue to do some of the things that it's doing now, but the historic district would actually just focus on those regulations.
I believe that's correct,
Okay.
yes. I mean, because the Heritage Advisory could expand out further than this particular area. It could
District.
talk about barns out on Grant Road. For instance, there are funds available for restoration of barns and things like that.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. I need a little procedural help here. What are you asking us? You just look, this is.
Just-
This is an informational, and for you, we would like you to take a look at this. We'd like your comments, particularly Mrs. Rose's comment about getting in touch with people in the district. This is a process that we're going through, that we will be going, the final approval does have to come from the town council. Obviously, we would like your support in putting this forward, and we're looking for your comments and edits. And in fact, and the other piece is that it is in keeping with the master plan. And as those things would come up, we would want to work together and see that things are in sync with each other.
Well, I think that, you know, it was at the town deliberative session that Larry Pickering said that, you know, our jewel is one of our jewels is the downtown, and it is, one of the reasons for that is, of course, it is this historic
Right.
area, and I think it needs to be protected as much as possible. At the same token, keeping the economic
Right.
viability of the town in sync.
And in maintaining the downtown area and the areas around it within that district is only going to improve the value and economic attractiveness of that area for the forthcoming years. And hopefully, you know, maybe the business district will sort of begin to spread back up the hill as it did originally, when there were businesses up Chapel Street and Church Street. That could happen.
When Janice just mentioned about notifying everybody who's within that district, is there a legal means of doing, I mean, if a house were to exchange hands, it'd be sold, how would the new owner become evident of that? Would that be part of something that's on his deed, or?
It's on the deed.
Deed,
It
okay.
would be in the clerk's office. Because we have all the addresses in the original documents, which is about that thick from the National Register. All these numbers are attached to dwellings or, you know, buildings. An example of what we were able to do through the Main Street Corporation was restore the engine house with funds from LCHIP, because it was in the historic district.
There will
Jen?
also be a public hearing at some point,
Yeah, there has to be a public hearing.
so people will be, it'll be notified, like,
Right, but that's a public
Okay.
hearing. My point is that over time,
oh, I
people
see.
buy and sell their businesses, their homes.
How
and
would
it's
they
a new-
know
a
that
new
they had
person-
to?
Yeah, I mean, a new person coming
Okay.
in would have to be notified. It has to be, and I think that has to be part of their deed, that they know they're in that district and have to conform to those ordinances if it's in place.
I would think so.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none. I will open it. Be fair, Helio. Any questions open it for public comments? Dan?
If I may. Dan Vincent, Building Official, Zoning Administrator for the town of Newmarket. Certainly in the reading of the master plan and their vision statement, it certainly speaks about the aesthetic values and the quality of the mill area of this town of Newmarket. The historical area itself has a great deal of forgiveness that's given to it by the building codes. So that if somebody was coming in to do a project that required, say, insulation, that required the walls to be removed of the historical building, there's some forgiveness given there. There's forgiveness given on window sizes, staircases, although if you're working on the staircase, you got to bring it up to code. If it's an existing staircase and you're not working with it, chances are you won't have to address the staircase unless it's a life safety issue. The Bryant Rock project, certainly there were some structures torn down there, but I think when we look at that construction site again, you'll see that the architectural features that are on the new buildings certainly complement the historical nature of the existing mills as well as the existing structures within the community to a historical standpoint. The last two plans that were submitted to the town. One was to put a new structure where Joyce's Kitchen is. The second was to fill the open space between the old Video Stop building and the four-story apartment where the open space is. Both of those buildings, the architecture that was delivered for presentation for approval was certainly complimentary of the downtown area. The advantage of having an ordinance, I think, to help move along the vision statement or the intent of the town is that right now I think the Chili's could probably come downtown and buy the post office and put up a pretty modern-day looking Chili's right there. So I guess that might be something the town would want to consider, and without an ordinance, that possibly may happen. The applicants, when they do come into the building official's office with a request for a permit to do some work on their buildings, there's two types of reviews that can happen. One is a minor review, one is a major review. The minor review, with the authority given to the building official from the Historical District Commission, can say, if they come in with this type of shingle, you approve it. If they come in with this type of siding, you approve it. Not all cases really have to go before the HDC, because some cases are repetitious as far as roofing goes, siding goes, windows replacement, and that criteria can be outlined prior to that person having to come before the HDC Commission and certainly expedite the permit. In the event, the second stage of that is that the chairperson or the co-chair could also come in to the building official's office when requested and see if the commission wants to review this plan or allow the chairperson or the co-chair to have authority to make the approval upon that review. In all, I think from reading of the master plan, the vision statement, I would be in support of the Historical District Commission.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? I'll close the public hearing on that portion.
George, can I ask you one question on that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you even know the answer, but Dan or Judy, maybe you've discussed it. This isn't going to raise anybody's taxes because they're going to be now considered in a historic district, is it? Okay.
They've been in it for years.
No, I know, but sometimes when the town, as a zone commercial property, it's taxed higher if they come in for your business. And I just want to make sure if we're going to turn around and put restrictions on people to keep the character of the town historical, that we're not going to raise their unless they do improvements.
Right.
We're not going to raise their taxes just because they're in a historical district. I think anyone in this zone would want to know that up front. Because some districts, I think, I know a friend in a historical district in the surrounding town, and her taxes are higher because she's in this district. And I want to make sure we don't do that to our taxpayers. Whoever makes that legal call.
Jen?
That brings up a good point, actually, because if property owners in this area are being asked to spend maybe twice what they were going to spend on a repair, then it would increase the value of their property and raise their taxes. So maybe something we should think about are some of the things that we just passed as far as with the wind and the different solar power exemptions, so that if you make these improvements to be fitting into the historic district, you're not taxed higher because you've invested in the downtown area. I think that might be something worthwhile looking into.
Can we move on?
Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is Charles and Roseanne Quack's continuation of a public hearing for an application for subdivision at 332 Wadley Falls Road, tax map R5, lots 83 and 84, R1 zone. The application is for a 19-lot open space development off Route 152, excuse me. The subdivision would be accessed via proposed 3,000-foot town road. The lots would be serviced by individual wells and a combination of individual and shared septic systems. The driving range would be closed and the lights removed. Over 50% of the parcel would be preserved as open space. 16 acres of open space along Fowler's Brook would be offered to the town to merge with other land owned by the town. The 15 acres of open space in the area now uses the driving range is being reviewed with the town officials to determine its best use. Mr. Doucette, how you doing?
Very good.
Good evening. I'm here this evening to represent the project as stated for proposed subdivision off Route 152. We had the opportunity to meet with technical review last Thursday. At that meeting, our intent was to discuss fire systems and curbing. We had the opportunity to talk about curbing vertical granite versus bituminous Cape Cod curb. There was some discussion about in some areas like there is where the significant wetland crossing is, there may be some advantages to having no curbing there versus curbing to allow for different creatures and amphibians to pass freely through there, but acknowledge that there's a negotiation point there. You know, by having curbing, you can shorten up the amount of fill, so you may have less fill in a wetland if you had curbing. But if you didn't have the curbing, you don't have that potential obstruction, but you may have a little bit more fill in the wetlands. So as far as impact, that's going to be something that we'll continue to work on with the board and with the state regulatory people, the Wetlands Board and Fish and Game and whatnot. Relative to fire, we talked about a cistern, suggesting putting a cistern up in the major part of the development in lieu of maybe running a water line and a hydrant up there. What I'd like to have the opportunity to do this evening is just to take a quick look at the regulations with the board to make sure that I understand them properly. And because after Thursday's meeting, we went back and we looked at, okay, what are the options? What are the options before us? And we had even talked about maybe some of this site should have no curbing. Maybe it should be open. So in dealing with that thought process, we went back and looked at the regs, and it would be very helpful if we could look at those together briefly to see if we're understanding them correctly. If I'm understanding them correctly, the required curbing is asphalt Cape Cod curbing. And that is in section 3.03 B. More specifically, 303B2.
Did you say 303D?
B2. B is in boy.
I'm sorry.
There. Those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, section B1, the paragraph right above there, states that where the road frontage is 150, average is 150 feet or more per lot, an open ditch and drain swale system may be used. The application submitted before you proposes a closed drainage versus an open drainage system. Our average lots are over 150 feet. So it falls within the category of B1, but here it's saying that an open system may be used in this particular site up in the loop area, the developed portion of the property. we believe it to be an advantage to have a closed drainage there, where you can contain the runoff, where you have control over the treatment of the runoff. You're not dealing with culverts under every single driveway. There's actually a little bit of a Cape Cod berm in front of all the driveways as well. The driveway drives right over that. So it's a very controlled system, and we think that's an advantage. Now on the long entrance road, the straight section, again, we're going to look at that further, but we were proposing it to be closed. We'll look at, again, treatment is the concern. And if we can properly treat it with an open, maybe we'll consider that. But control, you gain control by closing a system. So that was the original intent behind the design, is get control by closing the system. And so if I read this properly, the method for curbing, per your regulations, is to install Cape Cod curbs. So our waiver that was before you to waive from vertical granite to Cape Cod probably should be withdrawn.
Interesting. So where does the granite come in?
Where did it come in? Granite curbing
Under A4.
was talked about a few years back extensively by the board and within the site plan review regulations, because I think at one time possibly site plan wasn't specific, and they made sure that it was specific. Plus, it is also in the page that we just looked at under, oops,
A4, 303 A4.
yes. And that is where a drainage system will tie into the municipal drainage system. The curbing shall be vertical granite.
And that's what you were asking a waiver from.
That is correct. And we're not tying into a municipal drainage system.
Eventually it becomes a municipal drainage system because the municipality has to take care of it.
Well, that may, I believe, and you know more than I do about municipal drainage systems, but I believe the intent there is the drainage system that's within the community, the catch basins, the culverts, and the town maintained drainage system.
I think 303A does say, shall be required if available or as otherwise determined necessary by the board.
Yeah, I think it may be speaking to the distance from.
This connection to the municipal drainage system shall be required if available within 100 feet of any boundary of the property. I don't think we have a municipal drainage system within 100 feet of the boundary of the property.
No.
Or as otherwise determined necessary by the board, but, I mean, we're not even close to having one near there.
No.
Speak up, George.
I said that this reads that if it's available within 100 feet of the boundary of the property or otherwise determined necessary by the board, which I would interpret as if it's fairly close, close within, beyond 100 feet. And as far as I know, there's no municipal system out that far.
So that eliminates that.
I'm just curious if the granite curbing shows up anywhere else in here. Leo, do you know?
Shows up earlier on
Road
in
design?
certain districts, but it's, I don't think this district is it. I think
You said,
certain districts require it earlier on. like on Exeter Street, areas like that, that is required. Period. I think there's somewhere in there where it did say that.
Was that a recommendation decided by the committee, that the TRC committee? They recommended the granite curb, and is that what it says here?
I guess the answer to that is,
It seems like Rick Malasky is the guy who really determined that that's what he would like. Right?
that's correct. But as Bill just pointed out, the subdivision regulations don't require it and say they can actually use Cape Cod berms.
Mhm.
If you read the under, make sure I have the right citation here. Under 302, hang on a minute. 302 B, excuse me, 302 B4, all roads shall be paved, the minimum width of pavement per travel lane shall be 12 foot, which you've also asked for a waiver from. Curbing shall be required as specified in 303A or 303B. Go to those sections, 303B is applicable. Where no curbing or where Cape Cod curbing is required, gravel shoulders at least 4 foot in width shall be required on each side of the road. So I think you'd have to look at your design for that, because your initial design, I don't think met that, but that's a recollection from about months ago, Bill. Anybody have any comments? Leo?
Still looking.
George, I have a question.
Chet, go ahead.
Mr. Doucette, what was finally the decision made by the Technical Review Committee? What was
Excuse
the
me?
final decision made by the Technical Review Committee? What did you people finalize?
They're on your board.
What we decided was that we would discuss it here so that we would get
Okay.
the feel of this board's opinion on the matter.
I guess, but the confusion is, yes, Rick Malasky has asked for granite curbing. He prefers granite curbing. I'm not too sure if that was led down the road by the fact that there was a waiver asked for Cape Cod curbing. So, I mean, now there's, while Leo's still doing his searching, my opinion on this is that, well, my observation, I don't know if it's my opinion right now, but that the bigger criteria here, considering its location to the wetlands of Fowler's Brook is that we do retain the water. I'd rather have as much as possible, in my opinion, this is my opinion, a closed drainage system up there. I think it's important to collect that water and treat it before it gets to the wetlands and Fowler's Brook.
Are you talking about the road itself, the Cole Road, that's going to lead to the development?
The access road and the loop road.
So you want to close the water off to what's on the right leading to it? You don't want that water draining to Fowler's Brook?
No. I wouldn't want to interrupt flow from one side of the road to the other to
Yeah.
Fowler's Brook, if that's what you're
Okay,
asking.
yeah.
No, that you'd still need to culvert the roads and for that, and I believe that's what you've designed.
Absolutely.
What I'm saying is that stormwater runoff from the loop road,
Okay.
the 3,000-foot access road, should be a closed, as much as possible, a closed system to collect that water, treat it before it's discharged to the swale. That'd be my preference. The question is how to make that closed system work with Cape Cod granite curbing and
On section 3 of site plan review design standards, 301E, it says curbing, board may require curbing along frontage and along driveways to improve traffic control. Curbing shall be granite. That was in the site plan regulations, not subdivision.
Right, and that was my recollection as well, that I recall a few years back that site plan had addressed that for obviously multifamily and commercial sites.
Did you say that was citation was 303?
Oh, in site plan, section 301E.
As you know, site plan only applies to multifamily, 3 or more units within one building or a commercial site. It doesn't apply to this application.
We're
Yeah,
only
it was-
dealing with the subdivision application, right?
Exactly.
Right.
That was pointed out by my mistake from last meeting.
Yeah.
My guess is that's where the seed of granite curbing came from.
We can move on to fire if you want.
You want a, all right.
Well, I don't know what you would do. You're not gonna make a motion that this is your regs, so.
True, but we can discuss the fact that if you're gonna do the Cape Cod, right now it appears that you can use the Cape Cod berm, curbing. At that point, though, I think you'd have to weigh the benefit of that down in the low area then. I mean, before you were asking for a Cape Cod berm to let the wildlife under, whatever.
That has to be weighed out right at that wetland crossing. I talked to Adele Fiorello from New Hampshire Soil Consultants today again about that to get a clear understanding that, the wetland board wants to see that where? And she said principally at the wetland. So that's, a 100-foot area versus a total road length of 3,000 feet. And, the board has been very, very consistent on the environmental sensitivity of the site. So we understand that the drainage system design has to be sympathetic to that.
So we're all set on the curbing.
Okay. Section 3.10, emergency services. B1, well, B and then B1. Here it states that water for firefighting, at a minimum, there shall be a source of water along a Class 5 or better road within a mile of each lot or building site proposed. Sources shall be limited to a hydrant connected to the municipal water supply system. There is a hydrant on Route 152 adjacent to this site. So all the proposed lots are well within a mile of hydrant. So we meet it. We were proposing to add a cistern up in the development due to comments from the fire chief. Are still comfortable doing that, but there's a little bit of uncertainty whether it's that you don't want to add the other level of apparatus. You know, certainly with a fire cistern, the town maintains those, and it may be that the fire department would rather not take that on. Where when they have, and I think Rick has been very consistent that where there is municipal water, we want it to be a hydrant. Or if you're out in an area where there is no municipal water, then we'll talk about that. But, well, per your regulations, we meet it today without doing anything.
What section are we talking about? 30?
Page
3.10.
32,
Page 32?
2.10, emergency services, B. Chet, go ahead.
Bill, would you explain that, what you just said, in
It's-
terms of adding fire protection from, let's say, 152? Is that what you want to do? You want to drop a hose or something?
No. Your regulation states that if you're going to subdivide and create a new lot, there shall be fire protection provided. And the regulation says that that protection, a fire hydrant connected to municipal water supply shall be within 1 mile of the lot that you're creating. All our lots will be within 2,000 feet at the most of this fire hydrant. It's 1,000 feet to the neck of the loop.
I thought it was 3,000 feet.
Now, I heard you say that earlier. No, it's 1,000 feet to the start of the loop,
Okay,
like
sorry.
the top of the lollipop, and then it's about 2,000 around that. It's a total of 3,000 feet.
Okay.
Maybe it's 1,500 to the... 1,500. So if you went 1,800, so it's 900 radius, so you got 2,400 feet, maybe 150 feet from the end of the proposed road to the hydrant, so I lost my track of numbers, but it's less, half a mile, half of what the requirement is.
Still, how you going to get the water there if you have a fire? That's what I'm
I don't
saying.
know. That's what the requirement says is there shall be this within a mile. It's within a half mile.
But you still don't have the water. That's what I'm saying.
What do you mean? There's a hydrant on the there's a hydrant.
152.
Yeah,
Right.
So the firemen are going to have to run there with a hose and run all the way down there for a fire.
I don't know. I'm saying your regulation says if you create a lot, it's got to be within a half mile of the hydrant, which it is.
It says at a minimum.
Right, it does. And we are half of what, we're a half mile, it says a mile.
I think that's discretionary to the board as far as my concern. At a minimum, there shall be a source of water for firefighting.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
It seems to me that we have gone round and round and round with this fire issue. Last meeting, I believe, the developer was offering to put in cisterns in order not to take water out of the municipal system, and there was issue with that. Now, they're offering, okay, there is a hydrant, and we can hook up to the municipal system, and now there's issue with that. So exactly what is the developer supposed to do? He's offered to do either one, and either one, there's an argument, and I don't quite understand.
I don't think there's an argument. I think we're trying to clarify.
I mean, he's offered either
Let's-
choice.
At the technical review committee, the question of the cistern was brought up, and we, as you can see from Clay's notes, we discussed it, and from the history, the past history in this town, over this last month with the number of fires, that there's a sensitivity here of providing water to fires. And at that point, we said, you know, we asked the applicant to talk to Rick Malasky. I don't know if you ever got to the verbal discussions, but it's evident that Rick wants a hydrant system. At the technical review committee, we did ask if there was a way of trying to meet it under the assumption, or it was a bit, maybe incorrect assumption, that the hydrant had to be brought up the access road closer to the homes. And we asked the applicant to look at, if you didn't bring it up all the way up the road, if there was a spot that you could bring a hydrant to that sort of split the difference. Because cistern, we weren't gonna, Rick didn't want the cisterns. They obviously went back and read the fine print, well, actually, not the fine print, the print, and realized that the hydrant on 152 is well within 1 mile of the furthest most lot. So they already meet, by hooking up to that, by having that hydrant there, they meet the requirement of this subdivision regulation.
Right.
That's the summation.
No,
Well, I understand a summation. I don't understand why we have a problem with making a decision.
yeah,
I think we're just trying to make sure we've dotted every I and crossed every T.
was Rick
Check.
Malasky at the technical review?
No, he was not.
Then I
He
think
was
you
at the
people
first
should go
one.
back and meet with Mr. Malasky and get that thing resolved. Shouldn't be talking about it here. That's what the technical review committee's for, to get that thing resolved. And he should have been
Well,
at that meeting.
He should have, and we asked him to be,
Sitting here doing this. We've already given him permission to put a cistern in. If he doesn't want it, he should be at that committee and tell him exactly what he wants, and then
Let's-
have to
before you-
argue it out.
before I let you go, Deb. I'm presuming that by your interpretation of this, that the cistern is off the table or still on the table?
We would still consider the cistern. To bring a hydrant further into the site is cost prohibitive.
But you'd still be willing to consider cistern with a hydrant within 1 mile,
Yes,
within less than 1 mile?
yes.
If I get my math straight
The
again.
existing hydrant.
Deb, you had a question or a comment?
A comment, yes. Now, I believe, and I can't quote the reference where I read it, that a fire chief of a town can have a preference as to his form of fire protection, but he does not have authority to advise any board, any developer. He can have a preference, but he's not authorized to say, you can have this or you can't have that. So he can give an opinion as to what he would prefer, but that's all he can do.
It says it right there. Sorry, can I?
Yes.
3.10 Emergency Services, A, right above the one we were just addressing. All applicants shall provide a copy of the subdivision plan to the police department and fire department for their reviews and comments. While their input will weigh heavily, the board reserves the final authority to make design decisions.
Thanks.
That's what I was gonna, yes. But, that said, it is a public safety issue, and I think we need to seriously consider what Rick is suggesting. Bob, do you have your hand up?
No.
Full hand.
I guess we still have this water department regulation criteria that is somewhat bypassed by the urban boundary thing, which has not been accepted yet or whatever. So the water department regulations do say that if water goes within 100 feet of your subdivision, it will be used tied in.
We waived that.
Okay.
We waived it the last meeting.
Yeah, okay. I didn't realize we could waive water department regulations.
I didn't know we had water department regulations to look at. I didn't think we had,
You don't think we have water department regulations that say that,
there's an ordinance in there that says exactly, you're reading the ordinance.
We can't waive it.
okay,
And they asked for a waiver from that ordinance, and we waived it last meeting.
I don't agree with you, but that's okay.
You don't agree that we did that?
No, I agree you did that. I don't know that we, planning board has the authority to waive water department, sewer department regulations.
Well, I'm not gonna debate that here, because we did it, and we're gonna move on from there.
Right.
The issue here is, and now it's our decision. Chet, I don't care what,
I I think they gotta go back to the technical review committee and do your job. That's what you're there for. And make sure Mr. Mulaski is there.
Chad,
We're arguing with a guy in downtown, and you're here. Come on, give me a
Chad,
break.
Rick Mulaski very clearly said
Well,
what
he
he
should do it in
prefers.
front of the developer.
Well, you know, whether he did or he didn't, he made his thoughts very clear. And he can state his preference, that's his right, but we're the ones that have to make the final decision, based on all the information from all sources.
That's the
He had an
impression I got.
opportunity to come tonight too, and he couldn't make it. So,
Jen, you have a comment?
I do. Could you just clarify what Rick Mulaski I can't find anywhere that he said he wanted a hydrant in the,
when he was
First.
here before, he said he preferred a hydrant. That was his preference.
That might have been at the town council, to be quite honest.
He's
No,
never
that was the
appeared
first
before us.
meeting we had downstairs.
It was at the first technical review committee,
Yeah.
to get that
so
on
at
the
the
record.
first TRC meeting, he said,
Yes. That was his recommendation.
But at the same time, our ordinances don't require that they put in a hydrant, so.
No, they leave the decision to us. Just as you read, Jen.
right, well, no, I guess
No,
the
no, no,
piece
no,
that
yeah.
I was missing was what started all of this, because I don't remember, that was a piece I didn't hear back from the technical review committee, I guess. I
first
did
ten-
miss a meeting, so that's probably where it came from. But so basically, the fire chief is recommending that a hydrant be put within this subdivision. And then we had talked about a cistern going there instead of the fire hydrant, which they were willing to do, but the fire chief did not agree to. And now we're looking at the developer saying that they would be willing to do a cistern as well as there's a fire hydrant within 1 mile. Is that true? Okay. I just want to make sure I understood it.
That's what you did just
That is
state.
correct.
Can we override what the fire chief says and just decide the fact as a board that we still stand by what we had proposed, a cistern, and that's it? Can we make a motion to do that, or we've already done it anyway? Well, we've already said that this is something we would allow.
Yes, that's what the regulations say, that we have that right to make that
Yes.
decision, and one of the options is a cistern. I think what's pointed out here is that maybe Rick didn't realize it, is that he has the hydrant within what the subdivision regulations require.
But they're willing to put a cistern in. I
I
would
think
feel
that
better
I
with
would,
that water source there, rather
He would
than
have- then he would have-
taking a
then there would
hose
be
and
two
running it down
sources.
half a mile.
there'd be two sources. I think, and the other issue here is that I think, and I guess I would say we do want that cistern, because one of the issues for Rick was that there's not dual access to this subdivision. There is only one access in, and that makes it harder for him to bring trucks in. And in a fighting a fire of that nature, he'd probably have more than one fire department coming, and laying those lines would become complicated. What little I know about firefighting. So having that additional source of water would make that better, in my mind. But that, Jen,
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the applicant's suggestion to put in a cistern, considering that we also have a fire hydrant within the 1 mile radius of the subdivision. But I guess I would want some kind of I mean, I haven't seen that it's there, but I would want some clarification that it was within 1 mile.
I think
It is.
you'd
Shows on the face of the plan.
you'd have to show that on the plan.
It's shown on the
It has to
plan.
be on the plan.
We did walk it twice. The board members walked it twice.
Okay.
I mean, and I walked it once, but I didn't look to see where the hydrant was, but you'd need to show that on the plans. And I don't think you'd lie to us on that fact.
I think he was lying. I'm just
No, I didn't mean to imply that either.
trying to move on.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I don't see going along with forcing. Two problems, I guess. One, the cistern, we have no criteria for it. How big, how big should it be for 19 houses? Who's gonna determine that? And what,
I think the applicant agreed, Mr. Bolt was here last Simon said he would determine that criteria, and our our engineer would follow through and analyze that they'd work that out. I think there's,
A large number of abutting communities routinely use cisterns, and there's been a wealth of data put together
they
for
have
that.
they have to show us the parameters and the design criteria, and we'll have Tobin evaluate those based on other standards and what other subdivisions have been doing in the state.
But also, our fire chief should be involved in this.
Yes.
In other words, we're telling him we want a system, and it's up to him to get the amount of water in that system that's going to take care of the problems that would arise in regards to fires.
Yes.
So you're saying you're gonna force a system on him whether he wants it or not?
I didn't think I forced anything. The applicant agreed that they would put one in, and I see no reason to say no. Can you?
Yeah, I can see this as a method of approval that the person who has to use it and maintain it doesn't want it. He's seen the areas around that have problem with these, with the leakage, with whatever.
All right, that's from the maintenance point of view. If you don't, then based on how these regulations are written, you're left with the hydrant at 152. I guess as a board, we probably could impose another hydrant, but I don't see how. It doesn't go with our regulations.
Usually when you start waiving certain criteria, like a second road, then you can complement that with adding other requirements that aren't spelled out in the regulations based on the fact that you've compromised one firefighting, whatever,
we have.
with something else. Therefore, you can compensate for it by adding another provision in order to compensate for it. And I think this is really what is happening this for emergency services. I mean, normally you require two entrances, an entrance and an exit on this. By granting them the waiver for only requiring one, then you can add some other provisions to compensate for that.
Yeah, Bob?
I think the developer would counter that he is making a provision by offering a cistern.
But if it's not acceptable, it doesn't.
It is acceptable. There's a hydrant and there's a cistern, so there are two systems in place.
Yep.
And I don't think you can do any better than that.
Of course you can. You can do better by putting in a hydrant in.
They aren't required to do that, Leo.
No.
And that's just
Well-
the way it is.
Well, Leo's right in that sense. This is written with the fact that there'd be we've waived the fact of two accesses. So you could, and having two accesses was important to Rick, and he's agreed that the one access will work if he has a hydrant.
Well, he's
Go
got
to-
a hydrant, and he's got a
It's
cistern.
1 mile away. That's not 1 mile away, excuse me, half mile away.
And he's got a cistern.
Was that a statement he made that he would be willing to, did that go with, was the statement that he made, if I have one, I'm willing to give up the exit if I have a hydrant there?
I would not.
Oh, okay, all
I-
right. Because
I mean,
then
you were
that's
there, but I
some,
wouldn't say it. I don't think it was a quid, I don't think
okay,
it was a.
because then that's something totally
sequitur.
different.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion?
The motion again.
So what's the motion now?
The motion was to accept a cistern, appropriately designed cistern, along with the hydrant at 152. Did I paraphrase that right? Jen made the motion. I don't have a second yet.
Probably should add
Oh, I'm
to
sorry,
that.
Deb is a second.
Probably should add to that the fact that it would be used for fire emergencies.
What would be used for fire?
The cistern and the fire plug on 152. You're
What
not
el-
saying what it's gonna be used for.
What's all those cisterns are used for?
Well, maybe. If you might, you wanna use to water your plants, how do you know? You should, I
No.
think you should state this.
Or maybe call it a fire cistern.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
thank you. Any further discussion? Not, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Or against? 4 to 2.
Yes, fine.
That is the end of our checklist for this evening. We would like to request a continuance to the June hearing to give us adequate time to furnish the planning department with updated plans and designs in time for even potentially a tech review before the June hearing.
Okay. Do I have a motion to continue this to the June hearing? Well, if we have a tech, be careful about this, thank God I thought of it. If you want a technical review before the next hearing that you're moving it to, it should be stated now so that the public can know about it. Otherwise, you're gonna have to send out notices.
We should do a tech review the week prior to the June hearing.
I didn't bring a calendar.
Here.
And the June hearing is,
That June 6th, Bill?
June 13th is the hearing.
No, it's only submittal of materials.
do you wanna do a So it's the week of the 5th, you're suggesting a tech review.
Yes,
That means you'd have to have that to us and our town engineer before then, so they could look at it, to
Yes.
have a decent review.
yeah, we're hoping to get it before you in time for your engineer to have a chance to review it thoroughly so that at the tech review meeting, it's not the first time he's seen it.
That's what I'm looking for here. So,
Bill, do you have an agenda for that upcoming tech review? A generalized agenda, what you want to cover?
I will submit to the planning department a week prior to the tech review a suggested agenda.
All right.
you have Memorial Day in there, Bill. Do you think you can get it, do you think Tobin, a week for Tobin would be decent? Could you get it
Should be all set.
to us and the town engineer by the 26th, 29th?
Yes.
So we'd have a meeting, want to set a meeting for the 7th, which is the Wednesday before. Leo, Bob?
That's good. What time? 2, 3?
I don't know what's, is 2 convenient?
Yes.
2 PM?
George, that's the tech review on the 7th, Wednesday, right?
That's correct.
Is it 3? 2?
2.
The proposed system design be done by then?
Sure.
You'll have the drainage and the cistern design.
Yes.
Do we have a motion, or do we need one?
We need a motion to move this to the Technical Review Committee on June. I'll make a motion, I'm gonna skip over it. Make a motion to move the, hold on, I wanna get to continue the Charles and Roseanne Quack's application to the June 7th Technical Review Committee, and thereafter to the June 13th Planning Board meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How about if we take a 5-minute break? Oh. Sorry.
That's my bad.
Huh?
That's my bad.
I'll open this up to public comments.
It's probably towards Bill.
Well,
Janice,
come up, you have to come up here and make your statement.
Just a short one.
I apologize to the public. I got wrapped up.
It may go to Mr. Doucette, but I'll direct it towards you. If you recall, we asked about the drainage that's going to be, the way they had it proposed coming down onto our property and my mother-in-law's. Has that, I haven't heard that addressed yet. Is that something being addressed at the next technical review committee? We've never
Not-
heard anything about that.
Up until this point, they needed, I'll answer this, but Bill, I'll ask you to supplement if I'm not on the right path. Up until this point, you're going through a design, there's some critical steps. One of those is closed drainage, not closed drainage. There's issues with water. Now that he has those resolved, he will now do a full drainage plan for us with calculations to review, and that'll be assessed at the technical review committee in the next board meeting.
Agreed.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions from the public? Now that we made a vote.
Ken Ernstoff from Barbary Coast Road, and by way of full disclosure, I'm also the realtor that introduced the Quocks to the developer and put the contract together. Development is inevitable, and I think it's the board's charge to make sure it's managed and controlled in a way consistent with the wishes of the citizens of Newmarket. And I think something that's been missing from the discussion has been this development's impact on the future over the next 10, 20 years and maybe 2 or 3 generations down. This is an open space plan. Sorry Clay's not here this evening because I know he was instrumental in putting open space in place. But we love coming down 152 and seeing those open fields, and I think we all enjoy living in Newmarket because of Bay Road and because of what we see out to the west. Let's not lose this opportunity to keep those vistas, because I'm telling you, as a realtor, developers are looking at Newmarket and they're seeing how the planning board interacts with those developers and how they're working with the developers. Let's use your discretion, please, to work with them in a way that cuts down on both if not the density, at least the spreading out and the sprawling of the houses. At the same time, you're supposed to be cutting down on the infrastructure costs and the complication of their application. If you'll just bear with me, I just want to read just 2 sentences from the open space plan regulations. The first one is under purpose, 602A, the very first purpose. Maintain and preserve the rural character of the town of Newmarket by allowing an alternative residential development option which preserves large areas of open space, provides for visual buffers from existing roads and residential development, and permits agricultural opportunities on parcels of open space. Clearly, this developer, and the Quocks, believe me, said to me, Ken, find a developer that's going to work with us and that's going to put something together that we are going to want to live with, whether it's in our current farmhouse or if we take a lot in the back. And I think we should all be pleased that this developer, through Bill and Appledore and through John Radigan, has been pursuing that as his goal. I think that's been terrific. The other thing, under paragraph H under the purpose, provide for a flexible and coordinated application process to reduce design costs to the applicant and promote a collaborative result with board input. So my last comment is just, let's encourage and not discourage these open space plans, and further using your discretion in a way consistent with the intent of the open space regulations and with the citizens of Newmarket. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll close the public comment period. Before we move on, I'm going to take a 5-minute break.
Bill?
And I'll remind everybody in the 5-minute break that these mics are still on.
We didn't vote.
I don't know. I had to leave.
Voted on to continue it?
Yeah.
Yes. Did you take down who, I made the motion, Jen seconded?
Yep. I did pretty good. I fell asleep at one point on my minutes, but.
George, do you know, I've read this public.
Yeah. I don't think you'd get it.
It's gotta be on 50. If we move it, we're gonna be hell trying to find it.
Did anybody call to tell you they can't, I don't think they can make a decision.
You know, that's what they got that technical review committee. They should have, fire chief should have been there. That was his job to be there. And it's gonna be his job to make sure that system is the right one. That's what he gets paid for.
Yes.
Because my paper, they sent me said a discussion.
The only thing that I get against that system is that it's gotta be maintained all the time. Once the guy puts it in, the town accepts it. And they use it, the town's gonna refill it, the town's gonna make sure the water's there.
Why would they do this?
They gotta keep checking on it, that puts an added
No, I'm saying, why didn't they do it
job
right
on
first time? Why
the
didn't they send
fire
it?
department.
I'm not getting in the
I'm just wondering who's supposed to do it.
Up in there, that's what I would.
But it has to do with the planning office, right? Same guy that, same guy gave me the.
You wouldn't have as much water.
That's right, I was gonna say
You would be
that.
drawing from the same hydrant
Yeah.
as you would be drawing, and this system would be a backup, which half a dozen, one a dozen the other.
That's when I thought, and I said, well, you know, systems in there, then you got two options. At least you got the safety that's gonna be met, you know, that's what I was thinking of more than anything. But I'm disappointed.
Well, he's really got too much work for one guy to take care of. The fire chief and the public works department is too much work.
I could be sitting here all this time.
I don't know,
But, hey,
I think the sidewalks smaller.
Yeah, it's a scheduled way all the time. It wasn't more than an hour, was it, they're over here? It's only an hour, he comes in for an hour. You come in here, listen to it, say, look, here's what I don't want, why? Then they can argue it out, that's what they're supposed to do. Come here with a problem like they did, I don't go there. I don't think we should be doing that. I think that's, we get that technical.
Sorry.
Finalize stuff.
yeah.
Look at us.
I was thinking of Bill Grass.
You have any new ones?
I talked to,
That's just forcing up. They're sharing pretty soon.
no, it's his wife that's been sick.
Really?
Yeah, because I talked to
Oh, yeah.
starter up there in Nichols.
They're real gentle.
And I said, did you see Bill Crash lately? I said, how's he doing? They said, oh, he comes in every day.
That's running first.
Plays every morning.
Yeah, that's my son.
Son.
Plays
I
every
might
morning?
do a story at some point.
Really?
There seems to be a lot of family connections in this year's race. I don't know if that's unusual. I used to work with
Yes.
I figured he was all right.
Yeah.
well, that's good, I guess.
He said that his wife's having trouble. I guess she's got Alzheimer's or
Oh,
something.
really?
So you might be able to call for me about that.
Okay.
But he,
Yeah, in fact, I tried to
she's
get
that
my
way,
other
he
son to
probably
run
don't
for the
like to
school board.
take
He
off
was
for all
gone
day.
to
He
the
likes
last
to get
minute.
somebody watching.
I thought it was your, it wasn't your, was that your son that was over at Bill and Bonnie's? I thought that was your nephew.
That was my son.
Oh, it was your son. Okay. Nobody's running for school.
No.
So what happened?
Well, no, they got two running.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Linda's running,
Yeah.
Chet shut it off.
and, it's on right now.
Did you shut it off?
And,
Guess it isn't. finish it up, Chet.
You guys meet tomorrow? This is typically my bad week, too. This week is typically my bad week. The one with planning board, I have open space normally, planning board.
Oh, did you want Robert?
Did the technical review committee go over the curbing procedures,
We,
styles?
Just remind you guys the mics are on.
we talked about it. The feeling with both of those things was that we should talk to the board rather than having just the TRC view it. They were somewhat important situations. But obviously, we were somewhat misguided on our ordinances, so. Yeah, I mean, I guess it'll come up to some extent where we'll allow there to be an open system, but, I mean, they're meeting the letter of our ordinance, so.
Who was that last talking?
Those only two.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Pro Wash / Michael Wheat. Discussion of an application for site plan at 80 Exeter Road, tax map U4, lot 2-1, B1 zone. The proposal is to move an 8-foot, 8 by 12 coffee kiosk from 1 Dame Road to the Pro Wash site at Exeter Road. I want to make note that there was an irregularity in the notification process for this meeting. It was one shy of, it was only 9 days, not 10 days. So while we can discuss this and do consultation with the applicant, we cannot make any decisions this evening. It'll have to be continued to the next board meeting. Do we have a representative from the applicant?
Hi, my name is Mike Wheat. I own the coffee station when I want to move across town. I was unaware there was just discussion tonight. I thought we were making a decision, so I don't really know where we go from here.
Unfortunately, because it wasn't noticed in time, and 1 day shy of the notice, the 10 days notice, we cannot make any decisions tonight. We can't even move to accept the application, but we can consult, what we'll do is a consultation, which means we can discuss it. You can hear what the board's concerns are. Hopefully, by hearing those, we get the issues out. The public might have some discussion. If we can resolve those, then when you come back the next time, it should just be hopefully a very short meeting.
Okay.
I can't, but we cannot make a decision on it tonight.
I need to know what you want from me tonight. That's just pretty simple. Just move. It's a mobile unit. Move it from one spot to another, right next to the Pro Wash building.
Well, I mean, I'll go first. I mean, the diagram here, I mean, I don't think we need a survey drawing, but it just shows a sketch of an X. I think there's got to be some thought process. There it is. My bigger concern here is safety issues and the access, and is there enough room for cars to go by? There has been some concern raised, I guess, to the planning board, to the town planner about garbage and collection of garbage and things of that nature. So I think you need to help us along here and how this is going to work out.
Well, I know Pro Wash has a man come in every day to police the area, so I don't think there's a problem now with garbage, and mostly my stuff will go out with the customer. Other than that, if there is a problem, we will address it right away. That's one reason why I want to move there, because Pro Wash is very active in keeping their property up. The landlord I have now isn't.
Just a little kiosk out there in the middle of a vacant land.
Yep.
Leo?
Our question, this would have town water?
No, it's all self-contained except for electricity.
No water?
No water, no sewer.
When's the biggest, what time is your biggest customer base?
Probably between 7 and 8.
7, 8 in the morning?
Yep.
Jen, you had a question?
I do. And what would you say the amount of, can you give me a feel for what the traffic is going to be like? How many customers come to you during that time?
Over there, I'm hoping more than I have now, but right now, through the whole course of a day, I have no more than 175, 200 at most during the whole day.
So there would be 100, you're hoping that that would increase, but at least about 175 more cars accessing the road where 2 businesses access right now?
Maybe more, but I'd be tying in with his business, the people that go there anyway. But it could possibly be 100 people more a day, yes.
And how does this affect the traffic pattern that is?
It doesn't. It would work the same. Go counterclockwise around like you would to go through the car wash itself.
Right.
Instead, you would keep going like you're going to the end of the building and hit me on the way out.
And then how would that affect any cars that were coming out here as far as there would be, if your car was coming all the way around and stopped at the kiosk,
Yep.
and then you've got a car coming out of the first bay there that's closest to you, I would just be concerned with and then somebody else coming around just to get around, that, it seems like that might cause a traffic issue right there in the front of that first bay.
Well, there's room on the side for people to get around. As far as
Plus another car that's parked by your window?
Yes,
Okay.
there's plenty of room there. And like in any other traffic flow, when someone comes out of the bay, I don't know what to say.
So there won't be a stop sign or any, you're not thinking of any kind of,
Just a caution sign.
A
Look for
caution
traffic.
sign,
If
look
you-
for traffic.
They'll be stopped anyway. You see what I'm saying? They'll be
Right.
stopped anyway.
right, okay.
No, I tend to go, going along Jen's
Yeah.
line of discussion here. There is the issue,
I mean, they'll be
especially
stopped for
especially coming
coffee.
out of that right bay. I could see somebody coming out of the kiosk and coming out of that bay and having an unpleasant meeting. Again, I'd like to see some more thought and planning about how that traffic would flow and what sort of precautions are going to be made that there aren't any incidences. In addition to that,
It basically work the same way as you have 3 bays now. If you have all 3 bays full and 3 people pull out, you see what I'm saying?
Right,
You
you'd have,
do what's normal. You go or I'll go, people take their turn. It's almost like adding another bay, but an open one, to the building.
right, exactly, which just means one more car, and right now, like you said, there are 3, if 3 people were exiting the bay,
Right.
and then you had another person coming around that had vacuumed their car, that's 4 cars that could all be coming to this one spot. Someone just got coffee, that's a 5th car, and they're all meeting that 6th car that's coming in to get their car. So I'm just concerned with that area right there. I think there would need to be some kind of traffic direction. I just see it as being an issue right there.
and there's going to be more cars coming in just to get, assuming that your customer base follows you and they're just going to get coffee, not get the car washed, there's going to be a lot more in front of those bays going by.
Right.
It's like, it's a one-way travel in, you come in, take a right, go right out around the building, and that's where all the cars come in and get into the car wash and exit out on that same side they're coming in.
Right, and on a busy day when you go to get your car washed, nobody's going to be able to access your business. I mean, because if I'm going there to get my car washed and I'm waiting all the way in the front, this whole lane is all full with traffic trying to get into their bays. So there's no way, I mean, because I've tried to get around them to go to vacuum the car on the end, and you can't get around them. So if it's a good day and people are getting their car washed, nobody's going to be able to get around to your business.
I don't see that many people getting their car washed at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm just trying to tie into the people that do later on
In
in
the
the
morning.
afternoon. My afternoon business is real slow.
Okay.
So I'm trying to tie into the people.
You just want to get the early morning business there.
No, I want to get all-day business, but when it's busiest for me, it's slowest for them.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Makes sense.
I just don't perceive 5 people converging, wanting coffee and to wash their cars, and
Would you have to run a separate electric service in?
I'd have to discuss that with public service. I'm not sure how they would do it. It'd be a separate meter.
Well, so you will be separately
Yeah.
metered from the.
I don't know how they run it from the road or splice it off of his, or how they would do it.
Any signage required? Other than what's on your, I don't know what, I can't recall what you have at a Dame Road. It's just a trailer, I believe, right?
No, it's not a trailer. It's a
Well,
stick-built building with wheels. You can't see the wheels. It's licensed mobile. I do have a sign out there. But I have to tie it in with the signs that are already there, so I have to go with whatever the code requires.
Okay. Any other discussion? Well, the board's still thinking. I'm going to open this up to public for public comments. Does anybody have a public comment on this? State your name and address for the record, please.
Phil Trail, 82 Exeter Road, Bay Motor Works. Looking at the drawing on this, the way it's drawn and the way it actually looks down there are two different things. With the where he wants to get traffic to come around the kiosk, this building is probably another 8 feet closer to my property line. So I don't, looking at it, I don't know how they're going to get around there. That's not my major issue. The major issue is that I own the driveway off of 108 for customers to get in and use the car wash. They have a stop sign for customers to stop. I have customers complaining to me, myself. I've almost been hit many times with customers coming out of the car wash and not stopping, coming down my driveway. There's a lot of traffic in and out of there. Sometimes the car wash has them stacked up all the way around the car wash to the point where they're on my land. I don't see it. I don't want the traffic in and out of there, and I've got other issues with it too.
What are the other issues?
Other issues I'm not going to talk about right now with you, but I'll bring them up at a later date if this comes back.
Well, we're here to discuss it, have an open discussion at this point.
Well, the issue of the driveway, that half an acre, I surround 3/4 of it. They have an easement to get through there. I let them put the driveway the way they wanted. I let the car wash put the sign on my property because that's what the planning board asked them to do. I've got part of this project built on my property. All my pins got dug up. I had to pay and get all my corner pins put back in. I've got part of their drainage ditch on my land. I've got a light on my land. I've got, trees, riprap on my property.
From Pro Wash.
From Pro Wash. I get along with Pro Wash. I have no problem with them, and that's fine. I don't know, once the pins got put back up last summer, I've got some customers telling me I need to do something about it. I don't know if somebody puts something on your land and it's there for 7 years. I'm hearing all kinds of stories that they can say it's theirs. I don't know how it happened to begin with. with an approved major site plan like that. I wasn't there, you know, to babysit the project, but I don't understand how someone's pins get all pulled up and things get put where they want.
Well, you have a legitimate issue. I think I can't give you legal.
Well, that's why I didn't want to get into that part of it, but
Well, but
the part is, you know, I spent a lot of money for that curb cut to get that entrance there, you know, deal with DOT, get it to the way they want it. And now the car wash is in there. I've got a lot of traffic in and out of there. When potholes start getting beat into that entrance, guess who gets to pay for it? Me, because I own it. They have a right of way over it.
So you've given Pro Wash an easement over your land for that driveway.
Correct, for that business in there. So it's not an easement for 2 businesses, 3 businesses, 4, you know, whatever they want to put in there to keep increasing traffic. If you've ever sat there trying to pull out on 108, I mean, sometimes you sit there 5-10 minutes. The traffic on 108 is very busy and trying to get in and out of there. So.
Do you have your hand raised, Deb?
No.
Any other comments, sir?
No, that'll do it. Thank you.
Mr. Wheat? Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment session. Mr. Wheat, you can come back up. I guess I would want to see, and I think the board would want to see, that you have an easement, that the easement agreement is worked out with Bayworks. I think he's correct. If he has an easement for one business, we're now adding another. This sort of goes, I think it's sort of related to a discussion we had earlier tonight about uses. And you're now adding another use with more traffic. So when you come back next time, I think we need to hear more about the discussion and approval of an easement for your business in that area. I think that's important. He has a very good, a valid concern. From my point of view, I also like to see a little, again, I'm not looking for super engineered drawings here, but something that has a little bit more scale to it that shows how traffic flow would go and what precautionary measures are going to be made so that traffic can be controlled in and out. I think to me, that's one of the bigger concerns with this. I think it's a pretty innovative idea, as long as it can be a safe one, and you can address the concerns of, I didn't catch the person from Baywork, I didn't catch his name. That's my input. Does anybody else on the board have discussion or question?
I like to see, when you give a map, I like to see 108 on this map. See how that stop sign is used on 108.
108 on the
In other
map that
words,
you...
in other words, show 108 on this map.
Okay, it was on the original map. I don't know what you got. It was on the one I gave the planning department. It's on the map. It shows where the driveway is, comes out right onto 108.
Janice, you have your hand up?
Oh, no, just had an itch.
Bob, Leo, Deb, Bob, Jen?
I'd like to physically just go down there and look, because I haven't been there to see the,
I don't think we need to have a.
no, I'm
yeah.
personally, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I think if you go and look, you'll see that there is, the certain, widths and whatever.
Do you have a question? Go ahead, Bob.
Just curious, will you be open nights at all?
I don't anticipate that, no.
Okay, because my concern would be about adding lighting and the concerns that would come with adding lighting.
No, I wouldn't add it. I think the place is pretty well lit on its own now.
Well,
It's like,
it closes at a certain point, doesn't it?
I'm sure it must.
10, I think.
I don't know
Either.
what-
Just making sure, that's all.
Like it's dark.
Something else, that's a good point. You should have hours of operation. Again, I think you ought to explain more to us about how if you can discuss with Pro Wash what their peak time is versus your peak time, we'll have a better idea of what traffic flow is. That might also appease the gentleman from Bayworks. I mean, not may appease him, but help him understand what's going to happen.
Have some measurement from where your building's gonna be to that property line. Just drop a measure of some sort.
Sure.
Feet.
Any other thoughts, discussions?
Thank you.
We'll see you next board meeting. Next item on the agenda is Cass Thurston, discussion of an application for amendment to a minor site plan to remove a handicap parking space requirement from the property located at Main Street, tax map U3, lot 158, M2 zone, vacant lot, per a planning board notice of decision dated March 12th, 1998. Again, I'll remind the applicant that this is a discussion only. We cannot move on anything tonight, but we can iron out all the issues and hopefully make it easier the next time.
Okay. No decisions just because this is a discussion or because there was a timeline?
Because it wasn't appropriately noticed. It was only 9 days' notice versus the 10 days that's required by the regulations.
That would be sent out by you? For some reason? Because I know I put it in a little while ago.
You did, but this meeting wasn't noticed in time. So that's the way it is, and it was 1 day shy of the point, so we can discuss. You can hear our input, and it'll have to be continued to the next meeting.
Since this little handy map is here, I'll go ahead and give you a
Sir,
visualization.
could you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name's Cass Thurston, 36 Sunset Drive, Greenland, New Hampshire. It's where I live. I believe that's what you're asking for.
Yes.
The lot in question, this is a vacant lot right here on the corner of South Street. It's right next to the old fire station that was redone. There's in the documents, there was a mandate that a handicap handicap space be put right here. When I purchased the lot, there was no demarcations, no signage, nothing on anything on that. And it was just recently when I was looking at some of the old files that it said that there was supposed to be a lot closest to this edge, and I thought that was rather curious because there's really not much business in this area of this downtown. I've driven through this whole area here, and I know there's two handicap parking spaces. One is permanent, and the other one's for Sundays only in front of the church. Other than that, that's my request. I don't know.
And you have no idea why the board?
Well, it was done. I know this was used to be Marcotte's Market here.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a storefront business here, and when the person was doing work on this building, and probably they had the storefront here, which was, this whole building was one big market, and now it's I guess two residences and a commercial in front. At that point, that's when they did it, I guess. That's the only thing I can figure on the timeline. But whatever it is, if this whole building were commercial and it was being reduced down to only a few hundred square feet, then your parking requirements would actually be lessened. I know there's public parking right down here near Flora Ventures. Other than that, there used to be a parking space right here from the documents I've seen on the town records, but it's no longer striped for some reason. And I would hope that with the usage, you're encumbering one lot from another, so it makes it unusable for an entire another lot to be used because of one handicap space. And if it would be possible, I'm not sure who owns these spaces, or if it's a business or if this is a city-owned there, but would it be possible to move the location of that handicap space more towards the actual business area?
Did Marcotte's Market own that lot at one time, the one you bought?
Yes, I believe so.
That's probably why they put it in there.
Okay.
Now,
Now you own it, and you're not, you don't own Marquardt's own market at all?
I do.
Oh, you own the
I
market
do now,
also?
yes.
Oh, I see, okay.
No, you own the buildings too?
I own this building and this lot. And you're encumbering 2 lots because of this building, and it's a handicapped space. So I was coming in to request that requirement of the handicapped space be removed or relocated in another space. Because in your documents, it says that this handicapped space has to be right there.
That's the lot right across the street from the old fire station.
Or next to it?
It's
Oh,
close
next to it.
Next to it, right here. This is a vacant lot here.
Okay.
Okay, the
Okay.
building that you own
Yes.
across the street from the lot in question, is that a commercial lot, is that a commercial use?
It's a mixed use.
mixed use.
It's M2 zoning.
It has 2 residentials and 1 commercial. And that, when that came, I was on the planning board way back in those days, and that was one of the requirements we had on the planning board for commercial use. You had to have a handicap parking at that time. And so they made him mark one of the lots across the street as a handicap.
And,
Use.
go ahead.
So you were on the board at that time?
Yeah.
So what's different now from then? Why would we want to?
I guess the question is, because of its use, why is it handicapped? It was thought there's going to be a lot more business there, and there would be probably more of a need for handicap parking space, but it's probably never been used since it's been built as a handicap parking space.
Okay. Jen?
Currently, all of those parking spaces are lined and they say parking space 1, and those are for tenants of,
It's for whoever wants to lease a space.
so currently you own that parking lot and you lease out the spaces to whoever, whether they're,
To, whether they're tenants or there are people around that need an extra space. Just like you have a parking lot, a city lot up here on the other
Right.
side of town that you lease out or rent out a space month by month. So that's basically what's happening. Whether I have tenants or whether someone that's living close by or whatnot, then I rent out the space.
so my question is then, who is the handicapped parking space for?
Well, there's not ever been one there.
So if somebody wanted to, they could lease out your handicap parking space if they were handicapped.
Well, until just a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago, I never knew there was supposed to be one there. When I purchased the property, there was no demarcation of any sort on that lot, none. There's not ever been any painting of a handicap space. There's never been any demarcation of actual lined parking spaces. And so all of a sudden I'm looking up some stuff and going, oh my goodness, what's this? So that's one request.
Okay. So it was here, oh my goodness, that brought you here, because it wasn't somebody else that said,
No.
this needs to be, you just want it to be clarified because.
Yeah, because basically, you have a space that's never been used, never been, as far as I can tell from the paintings and et cetera, prior to my purchase of it, has never been demarcated or used as a handicap space. There's no need for it from, this, which was a big business, is not now. So.
Plus they're 2 separate pieces of property.
And they're 2 separate pieces
Right.
of property. You're encumbering, you're losing the use of one piece of property because of another lot. So you're encumbering this property.
Okay, Leo.
Yeah, I guess when this was approved back in '98, it was expected to be a ongoing business sort of there, and that's why it was put on, but it went for several years without nothing being done, and then it was sort of moved in slowly and nothing has been happening. So I guess is your concern is you think that if this was taken off, you could lease that parking space?
I could lease it, or, I mean, it frees up the lot for other uses, whether it be a parking space or, you know, who knows what else.
Well, I think when this was approved back in '98, there were so many required parking spaces for both the residential and for the business. And this, one of these spaces was to be a handicap parking space.
Well, we still have those requirements. That's why I'm trying to figure out why we,
Well, I guess the question is, is there a need for this requirement for a parking space if it's never been used in
That's the question.
8 years or so?
so we'd be waiving a requirement.
Right. That's
That's
basically
fine,
what
as long
they're
as,
asking.
because those requirements are still on the book. I mean, I have to look up what they are, but
Well, I guess it's a judgment on the board as to, know, the use and whether a park or handicap parking space is reasonable for this use.
That's the only thing I'm asking is to waive that.
That be handicap.
A handicap requirement.
But they still have to meet whatever the parking requirements were at the time, which I don't remember what they were. But they need parking for both the residentials and for the business. But one of them had to be handicapped. What he's saying now, we've never used the handicap, and he'd like to have that waived.
obviously it wasn't a handicap requirement in the regulations at the time then.
Evidently, it might have been. I presume it must have been, or at least some board members felt that the proposed use at the time might have justified a handicap parking space, but the uses never came to be as what they had anticipated. There was supposed to be quite a bit of changes in the upstairs to make it into 2 rental units. The downstairs was supposed to be renovated for offices and whatever, and it never occurred. Might be a good idea to get the application that was approved back in '98 and see what the uses were and what the parking requirements were. If they are no longer applicable, then I think it might be reasonable to waive them.
Go ahead, Bob.
Can I ask, what is the commercial nature that's there now?
It's used to be a guy that's used storage for his veterinary equipment, and now it's some people that run an internet business.
All right.
So there's a few hundred square feet in there, and that's all. And they have their own parking spaces, so it's everything's self-contained.
Do you know how many employees, perchance?
There's, I think, 2, maybe 3.
Thank you.
How many changes in use has been going on in that building in the last 8 years?
Well, I think, at least the way that I see it proceeding in my head is much like Leo said, is we look up the use, we look up what it requires then and now, and see if there's any justification for a handicap spot. If there isn't, then we sort of look at this as a change of use, and thus it doesn't need a handicap spot anymore.
Everybody agree? Jen?
I guess what you just said, though, is that commercial property actually has its own parking
Yes.
in front of it. So we're talking about a separate piece of property that doesn't necessarily have a business attached to it. So it really would be, I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out, is that it's just like buying a piece of real estate anywhere in town, and you would buy it and say you're going to make it into a parking lot and lease out spaces. Would you have to have one handicap parking space for public guess that's what I'm trying to understand is, I mean, I can understand if you're going to have a business and you have parking for those businesses, then you have to provide a handicap parking space. But this isn't actually a business. I mean, it is, he's making money by selling parking spaces, but it's not something that is actually bringing customer base in and out of it, is what I'm trying to understand. So if somebody could clarify it.
Yeah, basically, when this was approved back in '98, they needed the parking. They owned the parking across the street, and they needed the parking across the street to meet the parking requirements for the 2 residential and the business.
Right.
So that's why the planning board at the time used both the parking they had in front of the building plus the parking across the street to meet their parking requirements.
So at that time, because it was Marcot's, they said you need a
Oh, no, it's
handicap.
way after Markot's. This is when.
But they said you needed a handicap parking space to access the business, not the residential, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Right.
And so now that it's been sold again, I mean, I guess my question would be if somebody bought where Marcot's used to be and somebody different bought the parking across the street.
They couldn't do it.
They couldn't, they're together?
Yeah. Well, they couldn't and still meet their site plan requirements.
Okay, okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
I think that would fall under sort of like the last applicant we saw where one has an access easement over the other person's property. That goes with the deed, and I would imagine that this is on the plot plan, and it's probably also included in the deed. So therefore, if it was still required, it would still be incumbent to you to have it there for the building across the way. If it ends up not being required, I think that it's something that we look at and waive and put in a new site plan, or go through the site plan process.
How many apartments do you have in that building?
There's 2, just
2?
like it was approved.
So there's a business downstairs and 2 apartments upstairs?
No, the business is in front. It's on the
Oh.
storefront.
Okay,
It's a
where
storefront.
Marcot's used to be, right?
Yeah, Marcot, the business downstairs,
Right.
they renovated the upstairs into 2 small apartments.
So how are you accommodating the parking for the 2 apartments in the business?
That's provided for them, as per the requirements. But there's
Provided
no.
where?
Well, right now in the lot, across the street. But you have to remember, on your plan, it says that there is a required handicap accessible space located, and if you look at the amended piece of paper, or the notice or action of, it says it has to be right there. One, there's no need for an ADA or a handicapped parking space if spaces are provided. And secondly, by encumbering a handicap space right there, you cannot move it ever. So now you're also limiting any use of that one space in that location. I think we're just coming back to what's the use? What was the use then expected and what is it now? And right now, it says there's supposed to be one there, even though it's not ever been there since
Yeah, but
for almost 10 years.
I don't see it that way. I don't see where you've changed your use. You still have, may have been change of ownership, but the use is still the same. It's still 2 apartments and a commercial venture. And at the time the board looked at that, they felt they need you need the parking across the street to accommodate the two residences, 2 apartments in the commercial. What's changed? The board at that time decided that one needed to be a handicap. If you had a handicapped person in either of those apartments or that commercial venture, how would you accommodate it?
If you're providing parking spaces for them, then you don't have to have a required handicap space stated in a certain location. It'd be provided for in their parking space that you're allotted to that unit.
Okay.
Because typically handicap spaces are used for public usage.
Right.
If you're private usage, it's not required.
The handicap parking space was for the business, not for the residents. that was a requirement for business uses at the time for certain
Because it was
uses.
more of a public business than a,
Yeah, it was a market, right?
Well, no, this is
No,
after
this
the
is after
market, way after the market.
You're
20
saying
years.
Are you
if
going
if
from
he is,
private, public to private?
if he has 4 tenants and 4 spaces, he doesn't have to designate one of them handicap because he's providing
so you provide for the,
automatically.
do you provide for the commercial as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's the key, okay. That's the part I didn't understand. Any other discussions? Well, before we go, I'll open it up to the public for any comments. Comments from the public, I'll close it. Thank you very much, we'll see you.
Should we continue it?
You can't continue something you haven't accepted,
Of course you can.
can you?
Of course you can.
Well, we didn't continue the last one, so I made a mistake.
Yeah, you gotta continue.
All right, do I have a motion
We
continues to
continue it
that?
for 6 months.
We didn't continue the first one, but
Oh.
that was a mistake.
Oh, you
You should, because then they don't have to send out a butters
then you
notice.
send out notices.
It wasn't their fault.
That was, no, and I understand that. No, all
I'll
right.
be
So
they're very patient people.
I have a motion to continue this to the next meeting, which is May
16th.
16th.
And I'll second that.
All, I don't think there's any discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I think we're down to
Can we
left.
continue the other one at this point?
You probably should.
We probably should.
Just
The applicant's not here, but,
We ought to continue it anyways in
yeah.
order
All right,
to,
do I have a motion? I'll make a motion to continue the Pro Wash application, the Michael Wheat Pro Wash application to the May 16th
Night.
meeting.
So moved.
All in favor? No, Jen already seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And someone should send him a notice that it is continued, so he knows.
When you stop for coffee tomorrow morning, tell them.
Tell him for going and stop for coffee. It's not my place.
Leo's motion?
Jen seconded. I moved the motion.
7 o'clock.
Hang on, I've lost my agenda. There's one more item. Thank you. Last item on the agenda. Iris Silifo? James and Linda Stevens / Main Street Deli, preliminary conceptual consultation to amend business plans to include an electric tabletop fryer. Again, same conditions, needs to be continued, you can discuss now.
No, I
We
don't
can't make
No,
any
I
No,
decisions.
no,
There's
this one
only
can,
the-
okay.
Not?
Oh, the way I read it,
This
they
is
could be
okay.
discussed. I mean, they could be voted on.
They could?
Well,
I-
here is
Could?
what he said.
All other, it was just Pro Rosh and Thurston.
Thurston.
All other items may continue as scheduled.
second paragraph of
Yep.
please.
Hang on.
I don't understand how half of it could be and half couldn't be. There was one notice that went out, either it went out or it
Yeah.
didn't. I
think
don't believe. we
We're
covered
looking at
this one.
Clay's notes here, and I think
He says Pro Wash and Thurston.
the question, what we need to decide right now is if it can be, if it's,
But it also says that, may discuss new items, but must hold off on action for the May meeting of any new items.
The only,
right, but if we
it's
decide that
followed
this,
by it
if
after.
we decide, this is the difference here.
Yeah, you guys.
If we decide that this was in the purview of the original, can I have that again?
Yeah.
If this is so minor that it actually would be inclusive in the first board's review and approval, then it would not have to be moved. If we felt that this needs a minor, it requires a minor review, it would have to be moved to the next meeting. Do you understand that?
No. So you can vote on it?
No.
Okay.
We'll ask you to present what you're doing. We're gonna try to, I don't know if Leo, if you were on the board at the time when this came up or not, but the decision we'll have to make is if this is such a minor change that it really was within the context of the first site plan review for the deli,
Okay.
then it wouldn't have to be moved to the next meeting. If we feel it needs a minor review and the public to comment on it, it would have to go through the notice process, and we would have to move it to the next meeting. And the only way you can understand that is if you explain what you're trying to do, what's different.
I just want to add more foods to my menu. I'd like to add panellis, aranzina, some galamad. You know, dip it in the fryer, take it out, grease it, you know, pat it dry and send it off. And I want everybody to walk out with a smile on their face.
Okay. Besides adding, what's it entail? That's what we need to know.
Just oil in a little basket. You put it into a fryer. You know, an electric fryer.
Yep.
And that would be the whole thing. Sits right on top of the table.
All right, the issue here is that in the original plan review for the deli, which I don't think at the time you were the owner,
No, I was not.
all right, that they were not going to use any fryer-laters.
Right.
So the board decided that, approved the plan with that knowledge.
Okay.
You are now proposing to use
A fryer.
a fryer. And that's what we need to figure out if that's a,
I just don't see that this is a change in the permitted use that was granted, which is a deli restaurant type thing. I just get concerned that every little change that happens in the businesses, I mean, you want to start having takeouts, oh, well, planning board approval. You want to, I mean, to me, change in use was change in permitted uses. It was, they always sort of kept it shorter, but if you change from one permitted use to another, from an office to another permitted uses, then you had to come to the planning board. But if you just change what you're doing, if you're selling chocolate ice cream and you want to sell vanilla, you don't have to come to the planning board. And basically, if your business isn't changing, it's, I mean, if you're adding, in fact, there's even law that says if you are even allowed normal expansion of a business without getting approvals. It's, so I just don't see that this is a change in the basic use of the business, no?
are this is a tabletop fryer?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
not-
haven't bought anything as yet, needless to say, because I had to wait for you guys. But it's just a tabletop that I'm looking for.
So it's not the big, Jen, you know this better than I do.
Sorry?
I mean, the big fryers where you need hoods and,
Well, I thought when I first read it, I thought, I mean, I don't think it's a flat top, which she's looking for fryer-laters, which are about.
I'm not looking for one with a 3 in it. You know, just one, a single.
So
single.
she's looking for something that's this wide and this long, that heats up oil and you dunk your french fries in it and chicken
Whatever it
or
is you're gonna
whatever.
fry.
It's just fries, it fries food.
Yeah.
So, and whether or not they would need a hood, that would be something, I mean, we have to have a hood. I don't know if they have a hood or not, but, I mean, you'd have to have a hood. That's fire, that's Rick.
yeah, I mean,
That's-
my biggest concern with this is fire and safety code,
Right.
possibly odors, but,
So that would be in the,
well, the
that
rest.
would be that would be,
Fire department?
fire
Yeah.
department. On whether or not it needed to be under code. I mean, I know ours has to be under code, but we have a whole.
Yeah, you're gonna.
Yeah, you would
I
just
don't have a
one
kitchen
small
that big.
thing,
My kitchen's
so-
tiny.
Right, and maybe, I don't know if you already have a hood system in there, I don't know what the, so it would be, I think we would want to get, again, since we might not be voting on it, we'd need to get Rick's opinion on whether or not there would need to be a hood. I mean, if we said they could have a fryer later, he could go in the next day and say you can't turn it on without a hood. I mean, that's, I don't know if he would or not, I don't know.
Yeah, that's, I agree with Leo, that's more of a code enforcement.
That's what I'm
It's-
saying.
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not gonna, well, hopefully it'll affect your business since it'll create more, but that's, again, it's still the same business.
Right.
It's not changing the exterior, it's, I sort of agree with Leo. I don't know if this is something we need to.
I mean, their business is providing lunch, and they'd be adding one more thing to their menu
Right.
by this piece of equipment. So I agree, it's more of a issue for code enforcement and the fire chief.
Yeah, did you have the appropriate equipment, fire safety and otherwise?
Okay.
The only other thing I think of is,
I'd like to make the motion that the planning board finds that there is no requirement for site plan review for this change in use.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
One question I would have, you mentioned the fact that your space was limited.
Yeah, it's,
How
no,
big-
I'm just saying I have a small kitchen. I would not be able to put a fryer later like Jen can.
Yeah. But there wouldn't be a safety thing, like if somebody was frying and they would get burnt by hot oils and so forth?
Oh, no.
Okay. That was on my mind, and I just wanted to bring it up.
Thank you very much.
The only thing I got was the odors, but with so many restaurants downtown, how you can tell the difference anyway? Again, what we're voting on is the fact that we don't think this has to go to a minor review,
Doesn't have to go to site plan review.
site plan review, so I'm sorry. All in favor?
All right.
Okay. So what does that mean to me? I have to call the fire department?
Yeah, you just need to proceed with going with the appropriate code enforcement
Perfect.
and fire safety issues
Very good.
that are related to whatever you're putting in.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Thank you. That's the last item on the agenda. Just before we go, well, I guess there was a couple other items on other business. First off, Deb and I did meet with Clay on the implementation plan, and he said he would try to work. We discussed putting a table together of all the different items that are spread throughout the various documents, planning documents that are in the town. The master plan being one of them, capital improvement plan, Newmarket, Newmarket Open Space, Newmarket Tomorrow, where they've listed out certain goals and items that need to be implemented. And we tried to group them, if we put them in a tabular format with the item, the reference to what document it came from, and group them by like items, we would then present that to this board and start prioritizing the issues and how we wish to attack them in terms of putting things in place to make those implementations. For instance, watershed protection overlay. Judy Ryan came today with one that's been in the master plan for a historic commission overlay. So we met last, I forgot, Thursday, and hopefully he'll have something to us before he departs. You've been on to the Black Bear TIF meetings. Any updates?
Just that it's interesting, the people that are on the Black Bear TIF are people that live in the Black Bear TIF. But anyway, they're trying to encourage development up there, and they haven't been able to get any commercial. So now they're going to try to get they have a developer who is interested in putting up 1-bedroom, possibly 2-bedroom, I think basically 1-bedroom condos for 1 to 2 people. And the hope is that by doing that, it will encourage more development and bring in money to repair the bridge. That's been the big problem, I guess. Commercial development hasn't wanted to go there because the bridge couldn't accommodate any big equipment. Town can't afford to fix it, but hopefully with this development coming in, there will be a new source of money, and this would not be people with children, so it won't be a burden on any of the
bridge is that?
systems.
Railroad Bridge.
What bridge is
New,
that?
New
Woodette
Road?
Bridge.
Oh, the new road bridge.
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
I thought that's owned by Newfields.
You talking the Newfield Bridge or the Woodette Bridge?
The little bridge by the Bodette Bridge?
No.
No.
I don't think the Bodette Bridge. No, I think it's the one
Oh.
off New Road down my, well, they're both off
It's-
108.
Yeah, the one right behind Ship to
one
Shore.
On New Road?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think that is Newfields. I think
That,
it's,
that road, that's in Newfields,
Yeah, but Newfields doesn't want to fix it.
yeah.
so that was,
It's always been,
The last time.
I'm not
the
sure I understood-
Newmarket paid for it.
yeah.
I don't think they want that.
So they're gonna change the industrial concept to residential?
They want to get into, no.
No, they're proposing to put a condominium
We're going to
complex. as
start
you
with
just said,
that.
For that area.
We're
right.
going to start with that. That's the idea.
And it was promised as industry to the taxpayers.
They can't get any industry, they
Maybe
said.
they should think of rezoning and reselling the property. They don't own it anyways, do they? Who owns Black Bear? Who owns all that land? It's not the town.
I think Mr. Labonte owns it.
Would you say Chet Jablonski owns it?
No?
I'm gonna put a school there.
Yeah.
And that's a B2 district where residential is not allowed. You have to have variances.
I think the intent, if I understood this correctly, the intent was that by putting a small development in like that, that would provide, however, I'm not clear on how the actual TIFs work, but provide the incentive to generate a tax base to start funding the TIF, to start doing more of the other things on the other properties within the TIF for industry. That there was sort of a seed type development to get things going.
Right.
If I understood it correctly, and I don't.
That's how I understood it,
Okay.
yes.
I understand it.
Did you, downtown TIF?
Downtown TIFs. That was, I met Julie Glover, who did a little presentation on her plans for downtown development. Parking and there's nothing really to report about that.
Leo, on the NCDC, have they hired a consultant yet?
Yes.
Oh, they have?
Cecil Group?
Who?
Cecil Group?
I haven't
I
heard.
thought that was,
Ah.
that was since,
Wow, but
What was it? I didn't,
I thought that was before the last meeting. No, was it
it may
since
have been,
then?
it was close.
I didn't hear it talked at the last meeting.
They're still working, I think, on the contract, but they've picked the company out that they
Where-
would like to do.
Where are they from?
Boston.
Cambridge area, something.
Some
like that.
Massachusetts somewhere.
Near
Can't-
Boston.
Can't trust any kind of person. What's the matter? Guys, I know that. I think that's it. Anything from the town council? Do you know, I heard you've asked several times as I watched about the urban service boundary.
Pretty much every month I ask. So, and I know that I read the minutes from the last planning board meeting, and Chet had asked Clay, and Clay hasn't heard anything from January. The latest was that it got switched to a different lawyer.
Different
Oh,
attorney.
that'll kill it.
A different attorney, because it wasn't getting any attention, because we were monopolizing one attorney with so many town issues that he was unable to get to it. So I'll ask again tomorrow.
So that'll
Unless you're listening, Al, if you could put it in your notes. But hopefully we'll find out tomorrow or
Yeah,
next
that-
month.
That means it's just gonna get restarted again.
Well, basically, I think there's issues that they're trying to resolve as to whether it's, at least what I've heard, there's issues as to whether it's legal, constitutional, or whatever. And that's what,
I
they're
understand.
trying to resolve those issues, and that's basically what's holding it up, and they can't resolve those issues, and
My understanding was Clay sat down with them about over a couple of months ago and helped them resolve this.
January.
well, he tried to, yes, and I guess there wasn't quite total agreement, and so that's,
It's in use in Oregon so far.
well, yeah, but I guess each one is sort of individual, I guess, as to whether you're treating everyone fairly or something.
I mean, we knew it was pretty complex and it
Yeah,
was going to
yeah.
take a long time. And I think what started out was that it sat for a little while before anybody addressed it. But the information that I've gotten is that it is being looked at. We just don't have any feedback on it yet. So
Well, it's been out, a while, it's been a while. I mean,
I
mean, yeah, if it was clear cut, it'd have been done a long time ago.
Wait, you want something done in 9 months? Come on.
yeah, sort of like that. Any other business? I
George,
mean,
can I ask Deb a question on Black Bear so other people can understand it? Newmarket, the town of Newmarket does not own that, the majority of that land, correct?
Well, as far as I know, they bought the town owns the Wilson
The old
Farm.
chicken farm.
Chicken farm,
Okay.
yes.
We own the chicken farm. But the rest of the land we don't own.
As far as I know, that's correct. You should probably ask one of them, but I believe that's the case, that Mr. Labonte still owns most of that land.
Okay, but do we have a contract with him?
No.
No?
Can I jump
Yeah,
in?
can
Yeah.
you
yeah,
just
but
clarify?
I don't think we own any of the land.
No,
well,
so
should
I
say.
guess why are we,
The downtown TIF, we only own some.
no, I know, but
And
why?
that's what I was just gonna say, is that the TIF district is just that, a district. It's just like what we receive with the historic district. It's a identified, area. And so the Black Bear district is just that. There are several property owners within the Black Bear TIF. And all that we've said by creating this TIF in the Black Bear is that when the Black Bear TIF started, the property values right there at that time, so you understand all that? Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
So it's not just it's just not one person or the town, it's a bunch of people that own properties in that district.
So what is the town's benefit if industry doesn't come in and it's all houses one day? I mean, that can happen now. Any individual house owner in that property, in that Black Bear TIF, wait a minute, I'm not wording this right. We're pushing for industry, that's what the town wants. But there's no guarantee just for industry, is there? Because now they're talking about to put the housing development in to entice businesses to come in so they don't have to pay for the bridge. If an industry wants to come in, I think the industry would pay for the TIF. I think industry right now in the whole area, if you can't fill up Pete's Trade Port, Newmarket's dreaming to bring in a parcel down there. And it seems to me if we're going to allow a housing complex to come in to develop industrial land that we don't even own, that we don't have any control over, what's to say you're going to get that bridge over with this developer and every one of those other homeowners can say, we want houses here. I'm going to go sell my house lots to be developed. Where the town was under the impression, all the taxpayers in Newmarket was under the impression that was for industry. That was sold to the
You see, I think
community.
the thing that about the TIF business, even though that they are offering this now as an option, anything that's any developer who presents a plan for these one-bedroom condos or whatever, still has to come before us, and we still can either say yes or no. So just because they've opened it up in that way doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. I mean, this is giving the developer the okay to go ahead and make a proposal, but he still has to come before the planning board, and we can deny it if we want to.
Well, as Leo said, it also has to go before the zoning board to get it resolved.
Right.
They have to basically change the whole purpose of the TIF, really. If you read the object and purpose of the TIFs, this does not meet them, that goal,
Yeah.
objective, and whatever. So they've got to sort of redo the TIF,
Yeah.
redefine it, and then might even go through zoning changes, whatever, make a zoning change that would allow some of these uses in, so they would not require variances to do it. It's sort of starting over basically from scratch again as to what the purpose of this Black Bear TIF, TIF is. When they first started this, they had an industry and they were about ready to go. And we missed out on the last minute. The industry went to peas and it's since went bankrupt, and we're probably lucky we didn't have it. Celestica was the outfit that was in Strata that was gonna move here, and they chose to move to Pease instead.
So it's really, we should look at rezoning areas because that's what's going to be happening.
That's what's gonna have to
Okay.
happen
That's where
before
I was
this
trying to
occurs.
head. It just seems, okay.
I think you not only have a problem with the bridge, but the New Road itself is not a good road.
Basically, before the TIF was created, this area was all acceptable for housing, and there had been several
proposed housing developments for this land that is now in the TIF. And for one reason or another, they did not materialize, and so at that some point, then they decided to rezone the land to a B1 zone, which made it no longer acceptable for housing. So, just like the B3 district up on the plains, they changed that so that single-family duplex housing is not an allowed use.
Okay. The only other item is as Clay mentioned in his notes, he's leaving as of May 12th. I don't know if the town councils, are they looking for a replacement? Do you know?
I just got the letter in my box. The town council hasn't discussed it. I'm assuming we'll probably discuss it tomorrow, but, I mean, as far as I know, I just got the letter and
What
it's
letter?
a resignation letter,
Oh.
copy of a resignation letter as a town councilor, so we haven't even discussed it.
We probably ought to go back to Stratford County Regional.
Well, that's what they probably do as an interim measure. It's
Yeah.
the quickest thing to do.
I work for Rockingham County Planning Commission. Rockingham Planning
Or
Commission.
I don't know, we're not part of the Rockingham County.
I'm well aware that I have to deal this out every time I do any census work. Pain.
We are
Well,
part
how
of the
come we're
Stratford
not?
County.
Well, how come they threw us in with Stratford?
It
Because
was
they
a,
felt we were more compatible with Durham, whatever, than we
We-
were with the Exeter group.
the real truth was they didn't want it to look like another layer of government, so they staggered it so that it wouldn't hit county lines, because then we would be county government. So they dropped one here, added two here, dropped four there, and said, look, it's not really a layer of government.
Huh.
It's a pain.
Any other items? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.